Meeting for September 6th to order, please. Ms. Madeline, would you take roll, please?
Director McDonald. Director Morgan.
Here.
Director Tremblay.
Here.
Secretary Craven.
Here.
Chair Kildee.
Here. Mrs. Craven, would you lead us tonight in the flag
Certainly.
salute, please?
Please stand, place your hand on your heart, and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right.
Amendments to this agenda?
No amendments, Mr. Chair.
Public comments for the Cam-San District? Let's move on to item 3. It's a consent calendar. It's just a minutes.
Move the approval.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. All right, comments from staff tonight. Is there any comments from staff?
No comments.
No comments from the staff. All right, any comments from the board members tonight? All right, quick one. With that, we're adjourned.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Is it on now? Oops, let's try that. Sorry, let me try that again. I'll call the meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Do we have any amendments to this agenda?
Mayor McDonald, we posted a notice of special meeting late yesterday concerning a closed session regarding existing litigation, which the city attorney will announce at the proper time.
And I have that at 7:30. Is that what
That
we're
is
sort of-
correct.
Okay,
Otherwise, there are no amendments to this agenda.
perfect. We will deal with that at 7:30. I do have a couple of items to pull from the consent calendar, so if you don't mind, let's, item F would go to community development, and item G to city manager. And does anyone else have anything in that area?
F and G.
Okay, if there's no objections, we'll take care of that when we get to the consent calendar. First of all, though, we have some presentations tonight, 2 events that are coming up, and I believe we have some of our staff members here to talk about it. The first one is our California Coastal Cleanup Day, which is September the 16th.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Anita Coleman. I'm the City of Camarillo's Stormwater Program Manager, and I'm excited to be here again for the 33rd Annual Coastal Cleanup Day. First of all, I'd like to thank the council and staff for allowing this event in Camarillo. I know I've been involved for over 20 years, and it's one of the fun parts of my job. I really enjoy it. So the event is Saturday, September 16th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and the pictures in this presentation are from last year's 2 sites in Camarillo. This one, of course, is the Camarillo High School boys baseball team at the Cayuga site. And last year we had almost 200 volunteers remove about 700 pounds of recyclables and trash. And the largest quantity of debris we are finding is pretty much plastic, and that you'll see throughout the presentation that is good worldwide, actually. Over the last 5 years, we've averaged anywhere from 200 to 300. One time we had 400 volunteers between the 2 locations. And of course, the amount of volunteers, sometimes we have more trash and recyclables that are picked up. And these 2 pictures are from our F Canyon or Mission Oaks Barranca site. Countywide, last year we had about 2,300 volunteers remove almost 10,000 pounds of trash. And there's about 22 sites last year throughout the county people could attend. And in California, we had a little over 59,000 remove about 700,000 pounds of trash. And the number 1 item that topped the list again, and it's been that way for 20 years that I've been here, are cigarette butts. Yep. That's a problem because we consider that single source plastic and the toxins that are in the butts. And then throughout the United States last year, we had over 183 volunteers pick up a little over 3 million pounds of debris.
183,000.
Pardon?
183,000.
Yes, yes. Sorry, did I say 183? And then worldwide, this event is held throughout the world on the same day every year, the third Saturday of September. We had over 500,000 people pick up 18 million pounds of debris. And the number one item again, 1.8 million cigarette butts.
Wow.
So again, Camarillo will be participating at 2 locations within the city. It's the Mission Oaks Barranca, which we meet at the corner of Oak Canyon and Mission Oaks Boulevard. And then we're also cleaning Cayugas Creek, and we actually meet at Creekside in Paseo del Campo about 9 o'clock on Saturday, September 16th. We do have a third location near Camarillo, and that's Beardsley Wash. That's in the county, and they meet at Beardsley and Wright Road. Again, it's Saturday, September 16th, 9 a.m. to about 12 noon. We will be providing the trash bags, gloves, water, but we do ask the volunteers to prepare for the heat. We have plenty of water, but it's always good to carry some with you. And if people want more information, they can call me at the number shown, 383-5659, or they can visit our city website or our countywide coastal cleanup website. There's 26 other locations throughout the county that are participating. And then we have the infomercial or public outreach put out by the Coastal Commission. So again, come and join us Saturday, September 16th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Just
Mr.
one
Morgan?
thing. I've participated in that many times. The one thing that's kind of similar has the same results. When they had Earth Day about 2 months ago, I think it was Earth Day, and it took a lot of people, and we went across that long bridge, goes across the river there between Ventura and Oxnard, and sweeping in tons of trash. But the biggest thing was cigarette butts. Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, Revlon Slough, I think, is.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's number. We're hoping to see a decrease in that non-native species, the plastic bag, because of the ban, but we'll know after this year's event if it's making a difference. So I do have posters in the back for anyone who'd like them in the audience for the event.
I apologize. I won't be there this year because I've got other things going. Sorry.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, we have another presentation, and this has to do with our National Emergency Preparedness Month, which is the month of September.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. Council, yes, this year, every year in September, we take the opportunity to pump up emergency preparedness for our residents. We have a new CERT class starting on September 12th. CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team. It's a great program that's funded by Homeland Security. It's trainings from our firefighters, the Ventura County Fire Department. And we estimate that over the last decade with our program, we've trained over 800 residents in Camarillo. And we have I give you a copy of our what is normally our business newsletter, Business Scene, which, as the name indicates, we normally talk about business issues. We thought this year, with the events that we saw unfolding in Texas, Hurricane Harvey, would be prudent to let our business community know that they can always include their employees. We're not just reaching out to the residential community. We can include employees, get your employees trained. The classes do fill up quite quickly, though, so it's important to call 383-5688. That's my assistant, Heidi Zarch. She can put you on the waiting list for that class. Again, it starts September 12th. It's a 6-week class. We also have several other things going on. There's a SCAG, Southern California Area Association of Governments. They have a new earthquake preparedness initiative. They're partnering with the Dr. Lucy Jones Center, Caltech, to work with cities throughout Southern California to get them better prepared for a major earthquake. We held an initial meeting here at City Hall last month, and we are going to be holding a meeting on September 19th with all the representative agencies that serve Camarillo, and program's going to last about a year, so we're going to check things out and see what can be done to make Camarillo better prepared for a major earthquake. I also gave you some of these bags that we have up there, and we are purchasing these. They have the Ready Ventura County logo. We want everybody to be aware of the ReadyVenturaCounty.org website. It's a one-step shop to get prepared for emergencies. It also includes the VC Alert notification system in there. If you're not registered for VC Alert, you should be, VCAlert.org as well. That'll give you automated notification of emergencies on your cell, email, what have you. We're going to participate in each year. CSUCI has a sort of welcome back event in September for new students and returning students, and we'll be out there handing these bags out to the students there on the 14th. When our CERT folks finish the program here, we don't say goodbye and never see them again. We do a lot of follow-up training with our CERT graduates. We're going to have one this month. We're going to have some Red Cross shelter training on Saturday, September 16th. And then next month, we're going to be working with Ventura County Animal Services on some training we do have in the regions in and around Camarillo a lot of properties where horses and other large animals are stored, how to care for large animals during an emergency, where to shelter them. As always, we're going to participate in the Great California Shakeout, which is on October 19th at 10:19 a.m. We do a simulated emergency large earthquake at City Hall. We do drop, cover, and hold, and an evacuation drill. We've done this for several years. And finally, on November 30th, we'll be doing our annual EOC activation exercise, which involves about 50 of our employees and other individuals. So again, we want everybody to be aware of Ventura County, ReadyVenturaCounty.org for anything to get themselves prepared. At least 3 days preparedness for each household. And if you've got any questions.
Mr. Tremblay.
Yeah, John, can you remind me again what the date was for the CERT training for large animals?
September 12th.
Okay.
It's going to be, I believe that's a Tuesday night. And that'll be, the training is held at the Ventura County Fire Training Facility at Camarillo Airport. It'll be at 6 p.m. for 6 weeks. And then after that, they have a Saturday class where they put them through their paces during the day.
Okay.
And again, it's free. We give them they get all the equipment, helmet, flashlight, gloves, badge, backpack. Everything is all free. It's funded by Homeland Security, and the training is from our firefighters. So.
Okay. And then the large animal training date, what was that?
That is going to be, we're still working on a date for that. It will be next month. We're still narrowing down the date for that.
Sometime in October. Okay, thank you.
That will be second Tuesday. You said Tuesday, right?
12th, yeah.
Second Tuesday of the month? Of the week? Every Tuesday for 6
It'll
weeks?
start on the 12th, and it'll be weekly after that. For
On
6
Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
I have a question on the animals. So you're only working on with large animals,
No,
not talking about the small ones?
As well, because there are concerns about, certainly as well as many of our elderly residents, they're not going to go into a shelter if they can't take their pets.
That's right.
Pets typically aren't permitted in shelters set up by the Red Cross. So what we work on, if they had set up a shelter at a particular school, we would work on establishing an animal shelter in the field of that school. But there are concerns, bigger concerns when you're dealing with horses and moving them, and so we're also going to focus on that.
True, it'd be bigger. We've all learned a lot about disasters in the last few weeks, if anyone who's watched television. But the animals were certainly an issue for a lot of people. And you read stories of people not being allowed in and not willing to go without their pets. So it's something we should be prepared with, because you never know what's going to happen. So I certainly appreciate all your work on that. And then the program with SCAG, I know we're going to hear more about it. We had a nice presentation at VCOG on the subject, and they have a nice video. And a lot of what they're focusing on is not only what happens the day of or a couple days of it, but what happens afterwards. How do you recover? How does a city keep going? And,
Absolutely.
and that's a
business
real important
recovery
piece.
and community recovery. And actually, it was an eye-opener for a lot of us. The initial meeting was held at the City of Ventura in June, and this was after we had updated our emergency plan. And they've had a lot of recent fault studies, and they have determined that the most active seismic zone in California is Ventura County, which is an
Amazing.
eye-opener for a lot of us. So.
It really is. It really is. Well, thank you so much, John, for all your work, and keep us posted.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are a ton of
And
small
with that, we will move on to the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval with the exception of F, which is being moved to community development, and G, which is being moved to city manager.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Anything you want to abstain from, Mr.?
Madam Mayor, yes, I'd like to abstain from recuse myself from item B, since one or more of the payees is a client of my law firm.
Okay. And that shall be so noted, correct, our city clerk? So with that, we have a motion and a second, with the one notation regarding Mr. Tremblay. Any questions or comments? Please vote. And that does pass unanimously. So next we move on to community development. The first item is the introduction of an ordinance adding Chapter 16.55 electrical vehicle charging stations.
Thank you, Mayor. Our building official, Renee Mario, will be presenting this item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Renee Mario, and I am the city's building official. On October 8, 2015, the state of California adopted Assembly Bill 1236, which requires cities to adopt an ordinance for the expedited, streamlined processing of permitting electrical vehicle charging stations. It also requires the city to adopt a checklist of the requirements for expedited review of the eligible permit applications. This is very similar to the solar ordinance that we did several years ago. It's state mandated that the cities adopt these ordinances for these expedited processes. We are requesting a reading of the title and a motion to waive further reading and introduce an ordinance adding Chapter 16.55 to the Camarillo Municipal Code, establishing an expedited permit process for electrical vehicle charging stations.
Perfect. Do we have any questions? Comments? I mean, this basically follows one of these that we have to do because it's state law and we've just got to get it on our books. Okay. If there are no questions or comments, I will
Move. Oh, yes, you do have to.
I'm sorry, no, I just had one. So just to confirm again, there are no material deviations in this proposed ordinance from state law. This is merely a conforming measure in all respects.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will request a reading of the title.
This is ordinance number 1143, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo, California, adding Chapter 16.55 of Title 16, Buildings and Construction, to the Camarillo Municipal Code to establish an expedited, streamlined permitting process for electrical vehicle charging stations.
Move the approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. And that does pass unanimously. Under the topic, or the section on community development, we then need to go back to item F, and that is a contribution of $50,000 to the Ventura County Housing Trust Fund.
Thank you, Mayor. Oksana Buck will be presenting this item.
Thank you.
Are we answering questions, or do you want me to provide an
is it
overview
on?
of the?
Yes, it is. I can tell you, well, I would like to hear more about it, but I will tell you the things that caught my attention. The first question I had as I began to read it was, has any of the prior money that we contributed been spent in Camarillo? And I did find that the answer was no. And that's been since 2011, I believe. And then it goes on to talk about perhaps the Habitat for Humanity's using it, but I need to know more about that and what is the certainty, I'm going to use that word, that will occur, or are we indeed just contributing money again to a pot that we won't see our citizens won't see the benefit of?
We anticipate that at some point, hopefully, we'll have an affordable housing project within our community that will use some of the funds from the Ventura County Housing Trust Fund. However, we haven't to date, and there's no 100% certainty at this point that Habitat will be able to utilize that money for a local project as of today's date. Now, we do anticipate that will be the case, but I don't want to tell you with 100% certainty that will occur.
Because I know when we did this in 2011, we thought that we would indeed see projects within our city, and none have occurred. So the question that came to my mind, wouldn't it be better for us to directly invest $50,000 into a direct project rather than funding a pot countywide that we don't see the benefit of? Well, they've done a great job. I'm not questioning that, the County Housing Trust Fund, but when we don't get a benefit from it, it's, to me, a little hard to contribute. Those were my concerns when I read about it.
Your Honor? I feel that any time that this fund is used to provide low-income housing, we benefit because it's helping countywide. And even though we have a requirement that in many of the projects that Camarillo residents have to be given first preference for this type of housing, sometimes things happen and people from other parts of the county come, and it's the same way with the housing in other parts of the county. Sometimes people from Camarillo have to go there, and it means they move away or something, but it does mean they get better housing. So I think that this amount of money, it's less than we gave before, but I think this, and I can support it as a one-time thing. I don't want to start doing this every year. You never know what's in the future in our budgets, but I can support it for this time.
And let me add one more thing that I didn't. I had 3 things on my list, and I didn't do the other one.
I'm sorry.
But and I don't know if it'll change your mind, but this $50,000 they're saying is going to come from our taxable housing bond proceeds that were issued for the Camarillo Corridor project. So we're taking money out, and I realize that with the loss of the redevelopment agency, everything's become more confusing. But we bonded for these funds to be used for within a project, and then now we're going outside of that, and that was the other thing that was bothering me.
Madam Mayor, if I can interject. I think the Community Development Director was possibly being a little more conservative in his comments than I think, where I think we're going to go. Recognize that a contribution of $50,000, if spent in Camarillo on a Habitat project, which may in fact be a city project, could leverage upwards of $500,000. It could be a significant payoff for an investment. I am much more optimistic that will be the case. I think we have a pretty solid project on the Berry Street property with Habitat as it's progressing. We anticipate entering into a term sheet with them and bringing forward a proposal for that. Part of that financing will be coming, the financing from the construction for that project would be coming from the Housing Trust Fund. And so I think there's a high probability that if we make an investment for the Housing Trust Fund, that it will be coming back to us.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I in some ways I agree with you because I'd like to see some of it used here. But I think it's called wait and see. Let's see what happens this coming year and see if some of the funds that things are going on now are covered through this funding. So I would think that we can move forward and see how it goes this year.
And I have a question then of, I guess, the city attorney. The use of these taxable housing bond proceeds that were issued for the Camarillo Corridor Project Area Fund can be used and sent to another fund to be used countywide?
I believe that city staff had conversations with our bond counsel, Marianne Goodkind, on that issue, and perhaps the finance director could respond on that one.
Yes, that's correct. We did speak to bond counsel and talk to her specifically about this funding, and those proceeds can be used outside of the project area.
Can they be, and then it doesn't matter what city they're used in the county, in the country? I mean,
Specifically, this project funding up to the Housing Trust Fund was discussed with the bond attorney, and she said it was an eligible use of those funds.
and this doesn't fall within our, name of it skips my mind, our, no, the redevelopment plan.
The long-range property management
yeah.
plan? Right. And
This is totally outside of that?
It is.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's still bothering me to bond for something and then send it off. Any other comments, Mr. Tremblay?
Just very quickly, I think the thing that's persuasive to me is the ability to use these funds, which are relatively, I'll just use the word relatively nominal in amount, for leveraging. And I, for one, am willing to go ahead and I understand completely what you're saying, and I have some of those same sentiments in terms of some sort of indefinite funding structure. But I think in this case and in these circumstances, I can support this, again, because of the leveraging aspect of it. So.
Leveraging in general or leveraging for the City of Camarillo project?
Well, I'm hopeful that it will be for the City of Camarillo project. I take Mr. Norman at his word, and the staff report was quite clear relative to use of the funds for leveraging both private and public sources of funds. So that appeals to me, so I can support it.
Well, that's what it's always been. I mean, that's why we donated some in the first place, but it didn't come out of these kind of funds before. Okay.
True, but I do think that we benefit as a community in supporting these types of, supporting the Housing Trust Fund, in supporting affordable housing, and I, for one, am willing to go out and, on this basis, on this time, in this circumstance, and do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Mr.
I just have a
Hildy?
comment. I just want to appreciate the conversation that we're having here about how we, use our money and how important it is to know whether or not we can draw from this certain fund. I think most of us, if not all up here, were hoping that we'd have a project before this. But hearing from the city manager, it looks pretty promising that we might be able to have something. And certainly what Mr. Tremblay said about leveraging, I think, is a very important aspect. You never have enough money. So any way you can, leverage your monies, it's always typically a good thing. So I can support it on those reasons.
I'm going to move the approval of the item.
Second. Withdraw.
That goes to the runner.
City clerk can choose on that one. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, please vote. I'm going to go along with that, but you're going to hear from me if we don't use it. So. With that, we move on to the, let me get back in order here, the city attorney section, which is an introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 10.44 of the Camarillo Municipal Code regarding park regulations.
Yes, thank you. As the council may recall, on August 23 of 2017, there was a meeting of the City Council where you discussed a resolution that was adopted with respect to designating certain city parks and other property where the use of bicycles, scooters, etc., was not to be permitted. During the course of that discussion and with respect to the ordinance which had been previously adopted by the City Council requested that there be some clarification language added to the ordinance, which has been done. If you look at big page 3 under item 1044-020D, like dog, the language that the council had requested to be added was to specifically call out that the limitations on cycling and scooters, etc., would be on city property designated by resolution of the City Council pursuant to City Municipal Code Section 1076-010A, which is the statutory authority pursuant to which those resolutions will be adopted. I should add that in the course of reviewing the ordinance, we noted that if you look at the middle of the page on big page 3, there was some language about what was to be considered city property for purposes of the ordinance, and the language was, we believe, too broad. It specifically did identify Constitution Park, Dizdar Park, the library property adjacent to the library building, and F Canyon. It also said, and all other property owned by the city. However, that we don't believe was the intent to include all property. For example, sidewalks and streets, there'd be certain of the uses that would be limited to, that would be permitted here. So in reflection upon the language, the proposed changes are those that you see in the red line. So there's 2 changes, and I can answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
I think we discussed this pretty much the last time it was here.
We did.
I want to make sure I understand D then. So D is on city property designated by resolution of the city council. So if I go to that resolution, I'm not going to find F Canyon listed there. And that's what...
The answer is correct. You're not going to find F Canyon in that resolution.
In that resolution. So that's why that now works. Okay. Perfect. Any other questions or comments? A motion? Oh, I got to read a title. This is an ordinance, sorry. Request a reading of the title?
Yes, this would be an ordinance number 1144, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo amending Chapter 10.44 of the Camarillo Municipal Code regarding park regulations.
I'll move to waive further reading introduced ordinance amending Chapter 10.44 of the Camarillo Municipal Code regarding park regulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please vote. And that does pass unanimously. Next, we move on to the city manager section. And let's go back and quickly pick up item G out of the consent calendar, because I just basically have a quick question. And this is a letter of support for the construction of a commercial composting facility. And it is located, I guess, just on the outside of the city limits of Santa Paula. And my question I have is, has the city of Santa Paula taken a position on this? Are they okay with it, where it's being proposed? And that's my only concern.
Mr. Fox.
We do have some, in your packet, we identify there are the letter supported for a couple agencies working together, Agroman and Limonera. No, I'm getting to answering your question. And so there are representatives of Agroman in the audience, and they probably have a better idea of what the current status is on who has already shown support. So we could have them come up and respond to your question.
Anyone in particular you'd like to?
Billy Camarillo.
Mr. Camarillo.
Hi, good evening. Bill Camarillo.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm older, and I'm in the city I love. So the project is actually in the county unincorporated area of Ventura, and it's actually between the city of Ventura and the city of Santa Paula. So right. It's actually closer to the city of Ventura. And we have had a conversation with all the cities that are currently utilizing that location. We go in front of that council on the 19th of September, and we've met with their council and staff as well. The letter is actually for Limonera Company. Limonera Company is the host of the project, and we have been on their property since 2004. They want to be reassured that the communities that we're serving to recycle organic waste to meet all the new mandates are on board before they move forward with a 25-year project on their property. So it's really a letter to the Limonera Company saying, thank you for helping us all this time. We need this because of all the new mandates required to divert organic waste from landfills. And we're in support of moving forward through the permitting process. So that's a 2.5-year long process at best through the county. And that's what we're requesting today.
And I'm not questioning the project. It's something that obviously we need, and I appreciate what the company is doing. I just wanted to make sure that I guess in this case, I always think of that being closer to Santa Paula than Ventura, but maybe it's people
Actually,
there.
2 miles from Santa Paula and a mile and a half from Ventura.
But that's the city line and not necessarily, anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The main thing is I want to make sure that those cities that have to deal with it are okay with it, because particularly the city of Santa Paula have had many occasions where things have been placed in their community or near the community, and they haven't been comfortable with it. So if you're telling me you've met with them and they're on board, that's my question.
And we are also very sensitive to that. It's fortunate or unfortunate, the Santa Clara Valley is where the majority of agriculture is, where this material ends up going, as well as the Oxnard Plain. So, but we are moving forward with them as well.
Okay, well, as long as you have. I wouldn't want another community to support something right next to us that we weren't in line with, so that's why I'm trying to be a good neighbor.
Let me remind you that when we were trying to site a landfill, the city of Santa Paula supported putting a landfill over near Santa Coy Country Club, which was at that time called Camarillo.
That's about as close as, but anyway, just because they did it doesn't mean it's right that we do it. So, Mr.
I'm
Moore?
not going to go into that direction, but I know what you're doing, because we've kept up with that, and you've been working with Limoneira for a long time, and it's going to be an asset not just to Santa Paula, anyway, it's going to be an asset to the whole community, because that'll take care of one of the problems all of us have to meet with state, with the state's new rules and things, regulations. But looking at where it's going to be, I doubt if anyone's going to smell it anywhere, because it's 2 miles away from Santa Paula's border, and that's almost directly because their border goes like this. And I know where it's going to be, so I don't think they're going to be bothered with it at all. I think that's why you're going to get support. And Ventura, same way. So I think you're doing a great job for the community.
And again, I wasn't questioning the project. I just wanted to make sure that those conversations were held.
I would just like to say that I kind of liken this project to our desalter project. I think we're down to the last minute. It's been a while since the law was passed. They've been working on this for even longer than that because they knew the law was coming up. And whatever it takes to move it through the county or wherever, I think we need to support it. And as you know, we've had difficulty citing our desalter, and we're having to take a good hard look at what we were going to do, and we took some action last time, and I think this is a good letter of support to encourage everybody to move forward with this.
Question, Chad.
Mr. Kildee,
And Bill, since you're here, I would assume you've been reaching out to the cities that would have a direct benefit impact to this with them about letters of support on this.
Yes, all the western county cities, including the city of Thousand Oaks, which the Harrisons serve, Newberry Park area, that currently use both the Limoneira facility today and have for the last 14 years, as well as the Arnold Road site out at Ormond Beach. And it is time sensitive. We have been working on this pre-application for 6 years, and it's an infrastructure project that serves the region. And we're out of capacity as we get closer to 2020. And it doesn't seem to matter whether it's an infrastructure project in Ventura County or a development. It takes forever to get something permitted. Even though we had the foresight to start 6 years ago, I still fear that we're going to be beyond 2020 to meet the deadline and going to be challenged on a lack of capacity to manage organic waste, even with everyone's support, including Santa Paula and Ventura. We've already received a letter of support from Fillmore, and we've had great meetings with the city of Oxnard and Ventura and Santa Paula, so we expect to get the support we're looking for to ensure Limoneira Company that the communities we serve want us to do this.
Right, well, we appreciate that. We learned a lesson in having to do with the desalter that you do need to talk to your neighbors, because if you don't, it comes back to haunt you. Thank you so much for answering our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, are you ready for a motion? But first, an editorial comment. I fully agree with Mrs. Craven. This is a win-win project from what I see, and it's environmentally beneficial regionally on organic waste diversion. So I certainly can support it. And with that, I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a letter in support of Agromin's efforts to work with Limoneira to construct a state-of-the-art composting facility.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that does pass unanimously. Whoops, Mr. Morgan, did you? I'm sorry.
No,
Well, I don't know how you voted there.
sorry about that. I'm operating with one eye tonight, so you have to apologize.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes, of course.
Okay.
I seconded it. I hope it's a yes.
Well, I assume so until I looked up and saw the light. That does pass unanimously, and we'll get you your letter as soon as we can. Next, we move back to our regular calendar under the city manager, and this is a funding request for the Museum of Ventura County. Mr. Norman?
Madam Mayor, the Museum of Ventura County is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to celebrate the history, art, and culture of Ventura County and the Channel Islands through its collections, exhibits, educational programs, and publications. The museum houses the vast majority of Ventura County's historical artifacts, records, and documents. And although the museum is working to fully curate its entire collection, which is vast, a list has been provided by the museum that demonstrates the significance of its collection as it pertains to the history and culture of Camarillo. And in that list, the thing that really came to my mind was were the personal journals of Adolfo Camarillo, 10 volumes worth, and they span some 50 years. And so I imagine there's some really interesting stuff there in terms of the life of Adolfo Camarillo and his family at the ranch. Through the combination of a reduction in both County of Ventura and City of Ventura funding since the passage of Proposition 13, and more recently a reduction in private sector donations during the past recession, the museum has been operating at a deficit during the past 5 years, and their current budget is unsustainable. Both the City of Ventura and the County of Ventura have approved one-time funding of $125,000 each for general museum operations. This funding is intended to allow the museum to operate for 6 months while the museum develops a new vision and sustainable business model that envisions the establishment of an $8 million endowment, the full curation of the museum's collections, partnerships with schools throughout the county, and expansion of its audience, all of this happening over the next 5 years as part of their recovery program. The City of Ventura had several conditions in approving its $125,000 grant, which I've outlined for you, and they pertain to information regarding the museum's programs and events and hours of operation, so the city itself could help bring to the public's awareness the museum and all that it offers. Also, a program and finance report for the 6-month term, which would include the current budget, completed or in progress milestones for the term of the agreement, and a financial statement for the reporting period. Also, monthly status reports, which would include attendance, financials, collections and management, and board development. I suggest that if the council desires to grant funds to the museum, that we accept the same reports that are given to the City of Ventura rather than ask for customized reports ourselves and add to the administrative burden of the museum, which is trying to recover and get into a sustainable mode. So if you direct, staff will return to the council with a grant agreement memorializing the amount and purpose of the grant and the reporting requirements outlined above. And that concludes staff's report.
Do we have questions? Mr. Trimley?
I don't have questions. I do not.
Okay. Questions. Mr. Kildee?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. Is this a one-time request for funds?
Yes.
It is. And with that, they want to develop a business plan for sustainability. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. With this amount of money, will that be enough for them to be able to draw up a business plan that will sustain them? Or will they have to, raise other funds from other entities, if you will?
Well, I'm hopeful that they would be able to raise funds from other entities, but my understanding is that they've made certain representations or commitments to both the City of Ventura and the County of Ventura, and they will be able to come up with that type of business plan.
And if they are not able to raise enough money for the plan and the $10,000 that we give them, is there some flexibility that they can use it another way, or do they return it to us, or how does it go into another fund, or is it, Where does that go? I'm just curious.
These funds will be used for general operating purposes to keep the museum running during this period, during the next 6 months, so that they can develop their their recovery plans. We do have in the audience the interim executive director, Elena Brokaw, who may answer these questions if you desire.
Mr. Morgan, questions?
Yeah, a few. Just a couple. How many cities in the Ventura County have contributed or been approached to contribute? Because Joel McRae was big in this county in historical. There's a lot of other things that you can pick out of Thousand Oaks, too, that contributed. You also had the famous family in Simi Valley that was big in those days, big rancher. And it goes on and on. Have you... Of course, the oldest ones, Santa Paula and Fillmore, have a lot of historical things. Have you approached those cities to see, and how many have indicated they want to join this too?
If you could give your name and position for the record, and then start to answer our questions.
My name is Elena Brokaw. I'm the interim director at the Museum of Ventura County. So far, we have approached 4 governmental agencies, the City of Ventura and the County of Ventura, which have both responded with funding. We went to the Ventura County Transportation Commission, which is our landlord at the Agricultural Museum in Santa Paula, and they have been supporting us with building maintenance. And we have approached the City of Santa Paula, which is providing in-kind services for the Agriculture Museum.
Okay, have you approached Oxnard, which is much older than the rest of us, and a lot of history?
Not yet.
Or Thousand Oaks, which is in better shape. But you're going to approach all of these, correct?
Yes.
And Simi, of course.
Yes.
Okay, because I'd like to hear kind of what they're going to be doing, too, and contributing. I know another thing, too, is when you got to know that not just Adolfo Camarillo we're talking about. His father had a business in Ventura, too, when they purchased the land out here. And so it's the whole family has a history that should be reflected in museums too. Did the museum have a former foundation that lost the money?
No. The museum was supported with county dollars up until 1978 and then was entirely supported by the private sector, by individual donations with a little bit of government funding coming in from the county and the City of Ventura, which has been very helpful. As City Manager Dave Norman said, during the recession, obviously, like all nonprofits, support dipped. And for many years, the museum has been operating at a deficit, a rather big deficit, which has dipped entirely into the reserves. I've been the interim director for a year and a month, and right before I came in, the reserves were completely depleted. So since that time, we have been struggling to develop a sustainable business plan. And now with this infusion of money from our very valuable government partners, we are starting actually to work the business plan and develop it all at the same time.
Last question. There's a major event, because I had to fight through that event to get us to a Contract Cities, a Channel Island League of Cities meeting, right in front of the library, in front of the museum. There's a huge event that had bands and everything. The whole place is packed everywhere. Are you guys benefiting from that, I hope?
Is this the 4th of July Street Fair, or is it
No.
a different one?
Different one.
When was it?
At the holidays?
Yes.
Yes, actually, that's so great that you asked that. That's the Downtown Ventura Partnership, which puts on the tree lighting each year. We just started conversations for this year to do a big community party on December 2nd in partnership with the Downtown Ventura Partnership and Food Share.
So you'll be able to hopefully earn some money from that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go back to Mr. Kildee. You had questions. Was she able to answer your questions?
Yeah, well, say that we do give the $10,000. Is that going to be enough to develop your business plan? And it appears to me that you really need to get a business plan. You really need to go out and raise some money to try to make it whole and to make it viable. So I think the business plan is extremely important now. So my question is, do you have enough money, or will you have enough money to, develop a sustainable business plan in the future?
Not just with this $10,000 that costs more. We have actually put together a team of consultants that are working in the areas of collections, programs, exhibits, endowment, outreach. I think that's it. So altogether, that costs more than $10,000. But this goes into the sustainability plan and the budget that we have put together to support the sustainability efforts that will get us to sustainability in 5 years.
So this money potentially and other monies is earmarked specifically for that expenditure. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craven.
I have one question, and it hasn't been discussed tonight, but it's something I read in the Ventura County Star, and it said that that was the first time I realized that you were the curators and caretakers of the old county documents. And it said that the city of Ventura owns the property you're on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question going back to what I've heard and read on all of this. It was my understanding that between the city of Ventura and the county of Ventura, they had both decided to contribute, I believe it was $125,000 apiece, to take you through 6 months, and at the end of that 6 months, you were supposed to come up with a plan. So don't you have funding, or do you indeed have funding for 6 months operation?
Yes.
Because that's what their money is for.
We have the budget that we had going into this whole process was $1.1 million. With this additional funding, which, by the way, part of our proposal to the county and the city was to match, partially, not a one-to-one match, but like a third-to-one match, with private dollars. So with this funding that we've gotten from the city and the county, we've been able also to leverage that into $130,000 of additional money that would not have come in from the private sector. All of that is going into the consultant team that I talked about, and 7 distinct efforts that we are going through to to develop the business plan and actually to start the business plan. With the city of Ventura, we provided a set of milestones that we have to reach. They are extremely ambitious, and we have to reach them by the end of January. They include securing $1 million lead gift for the endowment. They include emptying out some of the collections. They include raising $125,000 of that private match, which we already did. So, and we are well on our way to achieving those.
Good. So the $10,000, I don't know. I never saw a letter from you asking for the $10,000, so I don't know. Are you going out to all the cities with some kind of a campaign, or is this just something I think it was Mr. Tremblay brought to us?
Yes, you beat us to it. Part of our efforts is we are actually, the board has approved 6 new board members, and we are looking at a new board of 11 people, which is much more broadly representative of the county, with board members from Simi Valley and from Thousand Oaks. And our intent was working with the new board to go to the city councils and develop that and put in the proposals. But you beat us to the punch.
And so the proposal would be a one-time amount of money, or would we expect to see you every year then?
What we are hoping for is to prove our value and our relevance to your community so that there will be ongoing funding. We haven't done that yet, so we need a little bit of time to do that.
One last question.
Let me finish mine. And someone mentioned the journals of Adolfo Camarillo. Are those the same ones that someone, I don't know if it was when you were there or not, had proposed that those be given over to our museum?
I was not there, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Actually, it was to the Ranch Foundation, not to the museum.
Not museum.
Okay. And
Just
the
to make
ranch
it clear.
turned it down?
Because they don't maintain that kind of documentation, and they didn't have, there was more than just the 12 journals, or however many journals there are. There were a lot of papers and other things, and they aren't caretakers of that kind of thing.
No storage facilities for it.
They didn't have storage facilities for that much
Not at all.
either.
And our museum doesn't either.
I don't believe they were asked.
Okay. Okay. Well, then obviously we need to do something to preserve those. Mr. Morgan, you have another question?
Just one. I hear you're going to get somebody from Simi on the board and somebody from Thousand Oaks on the board, and here we are. We commit, and we have nobody on that group.
We have 3 representatives
That's what I'm after.
from Camarillo.
And we do. That's great.
Yes.
Okay.
From the city of Camarillo, or
3
from
residents from the city of Camarillo.
from the unincorporated area who call themselves Camarillo?
No, they're from Camarillo.
That's what I was. No, a lot of people live in the estates and the heights, and they will assure you they live in Camarillo. They assure us when they apply to be volunteers, and we have a requirement that you have to. That's why I ask that you have to live
I will
here.
find out if they are unincorporated and just honorary Camarilloans.
No, the post office designates where your address, what your address says. But whether you're a resident of the city of Camarillo or the postal zip code is something else.
I will find out.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kildee.
I don't mean to harp on the business plan. I'm sorry. That's kind of. It would appear to me that if you want to start this by January of 2017, you want to get your business plan going pretty early right now. So, do you have a budget about how much that business plan is going to cost? Do you have a number out there?
Yes. It is $90,000 a year, actually, is what we're looking at to develop the business plan. That includes endowment work and collections work as well. And what I'm looking at for that is the cost of the consultants. That's the maximum.
Okay, so it's $90,000 a year. Does that mean that you're going to keep this consultant on a retainer, if you will? Will they be updating your business plan yearly, or
What we're
how is that
doing
going to
is,
work?
it's a great question. Certain of the consultants, for example, the endowment consultants, that will be a longer-term project because that consultant is going to be giving guidance to the endowment committee that has already, there's 7 members of the endowment committee already on board on asking and on materials, et cetera. That will be a longer-term agreement with that consultant. The collections consultant, I don't know how long the collections consultant is going to be on because it's a matter of going through all of our storage facilities. The outreach and the programs and exhibits consultants will be shorter term, and those are going to be doing the bulk of their work before the end of this calendar year.
So you're confident you can have it in place by the January of 17?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And following up with that January date, so the city and the Ventura and the county are saying if you don't prove to them that you're sustainable, then they cut off their funding? Is that basically what they said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. Okay. And then I'm on the city of Santa Paula this year at this meeting. Have they contributed? I mean, they've got one of the branch museums in their community. Have they?
They're providing in-kind services to us, probably very specifically in landscaping for a huge garden that we have in the back, which is just like cash as far as we're concerned.
Right. And do you know how much that's for?
No,
Or
not
it's
yet.
worth? Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to tell us while you're here?
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. I do have one speaker sheet if there's no other questions. Oh, we have with us, where is he? Jim Monahan's here. Jim, city council member from the city of Ventura. Good thing I didn't say anything bad about Ventura tonight, didn't you? Yeah, I was born and raised there, so I like Ventura.
Well, you've got a very nice room here, your council.
Jim, could you pull that microphone up a little closer to your mouth?
It's my first time since I've been on the city council in Ventura to attend one of your meetings.
Oh, my goodness. And how many years has that been?
40.
Oh. My goodness.
Trying to catch up to me. You won't make it. I'm here this evening. My name is Jim Monahan, Ventura City Council member. I'm here to support the request of the museum, and I want to thank the gentleman, Tony Timberlake, for bringing this forward, and the rest of the council to support him. And Elena said it all. She was with the city of Ventura for a number of years, and we lost her to the museum. But she's doing a fabulous job for the museum. With the city of Ventura, the mayor appoints a council member as a liaison to the museum, and that's my job. And I've been going to the board meetings, listening to all of the issues for several years now. And they're a very dedicated group of citizens throughout Camarillo. Some are ranchers, some are lawyers, there's various issues. And I think that what's happening now, the reorganization, is going to really help the operations of the museum. It's going to be successful. And maybe Camarillo may consider a liaison person that would attend meetings occasionally if they choose to. I'll answer any questions that you like.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Monahan? We don't have any questions for you, but thank you for coming. And if it took 40 years to get you here, then this must be important.
I'm going to see Kevin in the morning, so 8:30, got to be there.
It must be animal services, is that?
No, this is...
VRSD.
Oh, VRSD.
It's a Thursday, trash day.
Oh, sorry.
By the way, I didn't see any of you at CASA. I was really surprised.
We had a council meeting.
Council meeting,
You can cancel that.
right in the middle of it.
Thank you.
One quick thing. I hope when we appear before you, one of us does, and I'm sure I will, about some donations to the Ventura County, hopefully, Children's Museum, and potential funding for that big children's museum, which is being worked on now, we get greeted that same way.
How's that?
Friendly and accommodating.
Very welcoming. Remember that.
Of course, do any of you have a membership in the museum of Ventura County? Any of you?
I used to.
I did
haven't
too. I
been there
used
in a
to.
while.
I'll bring some over to you. I'll give them to Mike
Go
in the
on there
morning.
since
Or
that's-
Kevin, what am I saying?
Okay.
Anyway, that's the same thing with the Board of Supervisors. I think one member there was a member of the museum. So anyway, we need to all support the museum. It's a county-wide facility.
Great,
And
thank
you're all
you.
represented there, believe me.
Great, thank you. Do I have one more speaker sheet? Oh, you got to pull that way down there, Nan.
Good evening, Nan Drake. I am part of the reorganization committee for the museum, but fortunately, my job is done. The museum is a absolute incredible place if you've ever been there. The collections are amazing. They do represent the whole county. And I think that is part of what the vision is really going to do. It's going to tell the story of each city, how we've grown to represent one of the most, I think, best places to live in California. And it's also going to point out the history of each individual city and how we grew to become that. And we understand that perhaps this vision was not established in the past, but we are looking forward, knowing that we have this huge history behind us. So we need every city to step forward and do their part so that their incredible city will be recognized as part of the history of the whole community that we call Ventura County. My job was to sit on an advisory committee to establish the new board of directors. We have done that. It's a very balanced committee. It represents people who sit on major corporations, who understand how to run a business, what a bottom line is, and they are very excited. We've had people step forward that just can't wait to do business, and that's what we intend to do. So please, tonight, be part of this forward movement to make sure that the history of the whole county is represented by all 10 cities.
Thank you very much.
Just one question. I always want to know this, and I should be looking it up, but are you the oldest city in Ventura County? I think you are.
We are. Ventura is.
Because others continue to claim that a little bit, Santa Paula, Oxnard, and so on.
You know what? You were here before you were a city. And that makes you part of the long-term history of the county, regardless of when you incorporate.
Oh, I just want to know which one incorporated first.
Well, I'm sure it was City of Ventura.
I
thought South.
don't know. I thought it was Santa Paula, too.
Yeah.
Well, we just
Doesn't matter. It's not on the agenda, so let's
It's just a question. I
keep
need
the topic.
I need to get verified somewhere.
I might be old, but I wasn't there then, so I have no idea.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nan. I do not have any more speaker sheets. Would anyone else like to address us on this item? Okay. With that, I think we're done with questions. A motion, Mr. Trimpley?
Well, I think we need to talk about it.
Yes, we do.
Well, since
Have a
I'm the
motion and talk about it.
since I'm the one who's responsible for bringing this to council, I appreciate my colleagues listening to the item. I would ask my colleagues to support this grant. I fully acknowledge that I jumped the gun, but I know that the museum is doing outreach to the other municipalities within the county. I've been fortunate enough to visit the museum, and it is a gem. This is a relatively nominal amount. It's $10,000, but it's a relatively nominal amount, but it's important for two reasons, the way I look at it. One is a sign of support for what the museum does, and the second is to inspire, in my view, other cities in the county to come forward in recognizing the importance of the museum to all of us within Ventura County. And I'm so proud of the council, my fellow council members, for an item that you did earlier this evening, which was with respect to supporting the Ventura County Housing Trust Fund. And as far as I'm concerned, this city stepped forward and showed some leadership in that respect, even though there hadn't been specific projects built in the city, but council recognized the value of what the Housing Trust Fund does. And by that same token, we should recognize the value of what the museum does. Museums, which you can tell I feel rather passionate about, tell our story. There was a recent letter to the Star, which I really took note of. It was very well written. And what the writer said is, and I quote, "It's where we go to celebrate shared identities and values and to honor and experience the cultures and perspectives of others." I can't say it more succinctly than that, and I'm often not that succinct anyway. I think the letter writer hit the nail on the head. We learn, and our children learn from these experiences, and we, the people of Camarillo, are a very rich part of that heritage, and particularly our agricultural heritage. And nowhere is that more exemplified than in the museum's holdings that Mr. Norman told us about, which are on page 4 specifically. All of the items relating to Camarillo, and the fact that the manuscript materials with the diaries and daybooks and journals of Adolfo Camarillo, and the photographs, the maps, the books and oral histories, etc., is, I think, extraordinary. And those items tell our story, and we benefit. So I don't want anyone sitting here or watching on television tonight who is in Camarillo to think that I'm bringing this to give any kind of short shrift to what we enjoy here in Camarillo. We are blessed in Camarillo to have local museums and sites that also tell our story. We have the ranch, the Camarillo Ranch, we have the Pleasant Valley Historical Society, and all the wonderful people who make that possible. The city has supported these and should continue to do so. I think, by that same token, this museum is also worthy of our support. It is a one-time grant. I look on this as an incremental. The museum has to prove itself. I think you heard Ms. Brokaw say that very directly, as well as succinctly, in response to the questions. I'm not asking for any commitment beyond now. We, as a city, if we approve this, we would approve this one-time grant, and the city would receive the same information that the City of Ventura and the County of Ventura are receiving. So I am fully in support of this, and we'll see what the future holds.
Your Honor.
Craven.
I disagree with Mr. Tremblay. I really think that if we give a part of a bailout gift, I'm not as confident as the people who spoke to us, Mr. Monahan, Nan, and the museum's interim director. I think that they will be back again and again and again. And I don't really, well, let me give you my reasons I wrote down last night. I gave this a lot of thought. The museum is the official curator of the old county documents, including those from the Camarillo area prior to incorporation, and those are county, not city documents. The City of Ventura owns the museum's property, so they have an iron in the fire, so to speak, to ensure the success of the museum, which is square in the middle of downtown Ventura. The documents involving Camarillo that are not official county documents and are of historical significance could easily be transferred to the Camarillo Public Library's Camarillo History Collection or to the Pleasant Valley Historical Society Museum. The City of Camarillo already heavily supports the Pleasant Valley Historical Society Museum and the Camarillo Ranch House in the same way that I'm assuming the City of Ventura does. We pay for the building repairs, we maintain things. We're the landlord, and we have a heavy investment in those two museums. We also have supported in various ways, but not nearly as heavily. The Bird Museum, which is a world-renowned, one-of-a-kind museum here in Camarillo, and also the Commemorative Air Force Museum. I believe we support those museums that are located in and related to our local population. The county, for 4 decades, shirked its responsibility by not fully funding the curatorship of the Ventura County official documents. And that is one thing that I think really contributed to this problem. I don't think $125,000 on their part comes anywhere near what they should be giving to help solve the problem. So I think that we do not have the responsibility the county and the city of Ventura have, or for the branch, the city of Santa Paula, because those are not here, and they're not the official keeper of City of Camarillo documents. The official keeper of City of Camarillo documents is the City of Camarillo. The official records that they do have are not official records. They are, for us, they are official county records, and their curatorship and care are the responsibility of the county. As I said, I believe that nobody seems to have considered the Camarillo Public Library, but they have a lot of documents on Camarillo history, and I see no reason why Adolfo's volumes could not be there. Some of them are, I have read them. Some of them are interesting. Some of them simply tell how many apricots or how many how many bushels were harvested in a certain week or period, and you go for quite a while and there are no entries, and then he might have said it took him 2 days to reach the county government center when he was on the board of supervisors by his horse because the river was high. There are a lot of interesting things and a lot of things that didn't catch my fancy, but at any rate, with the transfer of those documents and artifacts that are of historical significance, we'd be out of the picture. So I would instead propose that we pay an amount up to $5,000 or maybe even $10,000 to cover the costs anticipated with the transfer of those documents. I mean, that doesn't, staff time and everything doesn't come free, but that's where I could go, and no more. And if somebody comes back in December or June and says, gosh, I need more money, it wouldn't get my vote either.
Thank you very much. Any thoughts, Mr. Kildee?
Yeah, you know, this museum is part of our culture. It's part of our history in Ventura County, and I totally understand some of the comments here. Typically, when we give money, we typically, not always, but we typically give them for building projects, for instance. Like, for instance, I believe that we gave the CB some money, but they were building, you know, a facility here. Mm-hmm. We've given the Pleasant Valley Historical Society for many years. I can go on about this. My concern is that our own local museums are going to need funding as well. But I think this is a unique situation here. And I think that for us to try to save this museum here, that you really need to develop a business plan. And typically, we haven't done, you know, funding for these type of things as far as salaries and business plans and things of that nature. But without a business plan, I think it's going to be a real struggle for them to survive here. They've got their work cut out for them, regardless of what happens. I can support a one-time funding of this to see if we can't make this viable, to see if we can't salvage this operation here. I think we can talk about what the past has been, but I think we have to look to the future here with this. It's not a tremendous amount of money, but our local museums would certainly like to have this money as well. And I think we do not want to lose sight of that. So in the future, I'm always going to, you know, look at what our local museums, and remember, there's a possibility we may have a new one with any luck come on board here too. So as a one-time expenditure of money to develop a business plan to try to save a museum that's been in existence for decades here, I think would benefit a lot of residents, not only in our city, but in the county as well. So I can support this as a one-time. I'm not nearly prepared to go any further than that. I think the council member here has brought up some very, very good points that we need to really think about here in the future. But at this particular point, I think they're not going to be able to survive at all unless you have a business plan, especially in this environment, which is, as we all know, that is a very challenging environment regardless of what you do. So with this business plan, if you can get it and if you can get it done correctly and right, I think hopefully that you can go forward. But again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I can support this as a one-time expenditure of funds here.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
You know, earlier this evening, we had a group called Agromen came in, asked for our help and our support. It wasn't money, it was a letter of support. And that's something that benefited the whole community. I'm not talking about Camarillo, but the whole county. With this in mind, I see what we've got in Ventura, and I think we need to keep it going and keep the thing, functioning. I do agree with most of the people here that no, don't come back with another 10,000, especially if we were to come ask for support from somebody that you might look at us too. We have museums and we have another one coming and so on and so forth that we want to be also looked at in this county. And so tonight, because I think this thing should keep going, but now I know we're going to get a letter from them telling us what's going on, like they're going to do with the county. I think that helps a lot to let us know that you're functioning, you're going forward. And so this evening, I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Well, I had written down a few comments, and one of the things that was clarified tonight, and I think the way I understood it is that both the County of Ventura and the City of Ventura had come up quite appropriately with the funds to keep them going for the 6 months, so that I don't believe our $10,000 is going to make or break their ability to do a business plan. That's what the city and the county did by granting that and giving them a timeline. You either come up with something, and if they don't, then the County of Ventura is going to have to figure out what to do with their documents, because they indeed have to store those, should store those documents. Museums are struggling everywhere in this nation. It's just they're looking at creative ways to raise money and what to do to have them survive. And history is indeed important. I also think we have to, and I think supporting that is a good thing. I think we also have to be very careful, and it goes back to the one we had before. The city of Camarillo has worked very hard, and we've been very conservative on spending and so forth, that puts us in a better situation than a lot of cities do. And there are a lot of things throughout this county that people will come to us to help us support countywide. Remember when the county started cutting programs and all of our when we were doing grants, the audience was full of county agencies even looking for the city of Camarillo to support them. So
all our grant money went to pay county employees' salaries.
Yeah. So it is something we have to be careful of. I believe in regionalism, but on the other hand, we are the city of Camarillo government and not a regional government. And so I think we really have to make sure that we're spending the city's money for the benefit of the city. Having said that, I do believe that having something like the museum is something that our community does participate in and would go to. I remember going to there when I was a little kid. We used to take field trips in school in those days, and that was one of our stops every year. We got to go to the museum. So it is a treasure that's been here in the county for a long time, long before we were a city. Having said all those things, I would agree with, I can support it tonight because if we can help a little bit to allow them to keep going, but and I wish them well. I hope they are successful, but I don't think on an ongoing basis the city of Camarillo should be funding this museum. We should be spending our money on our own. So to me, that's my compromise. I can do it tonight, but not necessarily in the future. So with that, do we have a motion?
Let me go ahead and make a motion if I can. The motion will be to direct staff to draft a grant agreement in the amount of $10,000 for future council approval relative to a grant to the Museum of Ventura County to assist with the museum's financial recovery and stabilization.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Would you be able to say a one-time?
At this point.
Do you amend your motion at a one-time?
At this time, I can say at this time, a one-time.
A one-time.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes, and with Mrs. Craven voting no. So with that, oh my, we are late. We have a study session, so we do need to recess to our study session, and we will be back at 7:30. Thank you.
I wonder how they pronounce that thing.
Tom?
Avaya Odessa, Odessio.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Camarillo City Council back to order and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Mr. Kildee, would you mind leading us in the flag salute this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any amendments to this agenda?
No, Madam Mayor.
Anything from council? Okay, we move on to presentations. We have 2 tonight, and the first one is just, I'm just going to give you a few facts and remind everyone that September the 17th through the 23rd is Constitution Week. And it's a time when we all should be very proud and celebrate the fact that we have this amazing, I guess it's only 4 pages in my little print here, document and some really interesting facts. In your packet, you should have had a copy of the Constitution. I hope you all read it to remind us how to the point it is. It is an amazing document. Let me get my things in order. The U.S. Constitution has 4,400 words, and it's the oldest and shortest written constitution of any major government in the world, and that's amazing. The Constitution contains 4,543 words, and it does indeed fit on their big 4 sheets. And it now includes 27 amendments. And that's the other really interesting one. As evidence to its continued flexibility, the Constitution has only been changed 17 times since 1791. And that is really amazing. Let's see what else I have. I have a whole list of interesting facts here. The first time the formal term the United States of America was used was in the Declaration of Independence, and of course that's been used ever since. And that They went through quite a process writing the Constitution. It took them a long time. It took them a long time to get to Philadelphia. Some people missed it by months because they got stuck in the snow between New Hampshire and Pennsylvania. So it took them quite a while. They spent a lot of time on it. It's an amazing document. It is one that obviously has lived on, but when they wrote the Constitution, the United States had a population of 4 million people, and now Philadelphia alone, let's see. Oh, now it's more than 3,204,000, with Philadelphia was the largest city at that point in time, and it had 40,000 residents. So from 4 million to what we have today, and this Constitution still lives on, is actually pretty amazing. And there were individuals with a lot of forethought and an understanding, I guess, of human nature to be able to write such a document. So did you all read your Constitution? Do anyone have any comments they'd like to add to celebrate Constitution Week? Mrs. Craven.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, my family was back in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and when they made the Constitution and when they printed up the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, for that matter, they printed multiple copies, so they all had to stick around and sign it, or they went home and they signed it later. When they got, some of them signed with approval of their states and some signed without. But it was very, very interesting because we saw in Philadelphia some of the original copies, signed copies of the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And then when we went to Washington, D.C., we went into the National Archives and saw those copies. And the ones in Washington, D.C. for a long time were just out under glass, under a cover, but in the open, and they are deteriorated a lot more than the ones in Philadelphia. Many people don't understand that this was adopted not at the end of the Revolutionary War, but there was a period of time when we were under the Articles of Confederation that failed miserably. And I think that experience for those years helped very much for them to realize where they went wrong and to redo it completely and draw up a document that has survived for so long.
Absolutely. Here's another one of those facts talking about those documents you looked at. The Constitution was penned by Jacob Shallis, I believe, a Pennsylvania General Assembly clerk, and they charged $30. So even today, that's only equal to $803. So back then, you got your money's worth. Isn't that amazing? Any other comments? Mr. Tremblay.
I have a few. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that this is a very appropriate and important recognition. I'm glad the council is doing so, and I thank the mayor. We revere our country's Constitution and all that it stands for. Having studied the Constitution in school and especially at great length in law school, and having a substantial portion of the bar exam, if I can remember back that far, that long ago, dealing with constitutional law issues, and having been involved as an attorney over the years in very spirited interpretive debates as well as disputes regarding its intent, I think it's truly worthy that we as a city council acknowledge its importance to all Americans. And this is a uniquely American recognition. It's not a partisan recognition in any sense of the word. It's uniquely American. And so I think what we're doing here is very appropriate.
I'll add another tidbit. Do you know that the word democracy does not appear once in the Constitution? You probably know that.
I don't remember that from law school, but I'm going to look at Mr. Pierrick on that one.
And another one, let's see, George Washington and James Madison were the only presidents who signed the Constitution. Mr. Morgan?
There's one other one. What was an article, what was not an article, but like the Constitution was based on, that has a lot of the aspects of the Constitution?
The Articles of Confederation?
Magna Carta? Nope.
Oh.
Magna Carta.
Magna Carta, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good, Charlotte.
I said.
Do they still, I don't know who's a teacher, what grade level do they study the Constitution in school anymore, or do they? 11th grade is when they still study it? Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it's still there.
U.S. government.
Oh, that's true. When you took, yeah, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
probably don't spend enough time on it, but, well, with that, I hope we all take the opportunity to, every once in a while, read it, remember what it says, and kind of get us back to the basics and appreciate the great country we live in, because it is, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kildee.
I didn't remember much from my 11th year in high school, but I did remember this. The teacher said, does everybody know when the year of the Magna Carta was signed? And I looked around. It's 12:15. Yeah. He said, just think about noon and 15 minutes, 12:15. And for 40 years, I've remembered that.
that.
So that's,
very good.
but what do you know, huh?
Yeah. So your teacher made an impression on you.
I want to put in a plug for a financial institution that's been gone for a long time, because I had a lot of trouble reading this, even with reading glasses that don't work very well. But I went and picked up a copy that I had saved of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that was distributed far and wide by Mercury Savings when they were here. Everybody in town, I think, has one of those big blue Constitution and Bill of Rights that they gave out. And it's too bad that I don't know of any company that does that now, but they, for years and years and years, they gave away those two documents.
Well, that you just got to my next point. If you come to City Hall or at the library, you will find flyers having to do with Constitution Week. And so hopefully within that they have a copy of the Constitution that they can pick up. Is that?
It's going to be the two-sided document.
Like this one? Okay.
Can you do it in black and white? This is.
Well, that's the pink.
You do gray and this and this.
It would look like this.
That's better. Oh, much
Yeah.
better.
So great segue, thank you. So come and pick your copy up at the library or City Hall and spend the night reading it and talking to your family about how important it is. We do indeed live in a great country. So thank you all for your comments on that. We have one more presentation, and this is another very important subject, and one that can be have a tragic end if we don't do our best to prevent it, and that's Suicide Prevention Week, and that week is September the 10th through the 16th. And I think we have a member of the local group, do we? Destiny Foster, are you here? Can you come on up and meet me over here? And I have a certificate for you, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about your organization and what you're doing to prevent suicide. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and helping us make the public aware of an unfortunate issue we really do need to address. You want to tell us a little bit about your organization and what you're doing to help the community?
Yes. So our organization is American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's a national organization, and we've been working for 30 years to fight suicide. We do have an annual walk that happens in Camarillo right here at Constitution Park. It's happening September 16th, Saturday. If you'd like to join us, it's free to join us, and we're just going to be hitting the streets, about a 3-mile walk to help spread awareness about suicide and best practices to prevent suicide.
It's a great organization. You do great work, and we all join you and join me in thanking you for that. And hopefully people will come out and help support your walk. And what if someone has someone that they're afraid are in that situation? What do you suggest they do?
If somebody's suicidal? Okay. The best thing you can do is ask them directly. You know, if you're the support person and you have somebody come to you and share that with you, the best thing you can do is to be a support person, to ask them, you know, do they have a plan? Do they have the means to carry out the plan? That way you know if you need to intervene via, you know, emergency services, 911. There are also national talk 24/7 crisis lines that they can also call. One of them is 1-800-273-TALK. And then also for the kids nowadays, there's text lines. So if they're not comfortable talking to someone, you could also be aware of the text line and hand that to them and just let them know help's out there. I think that's one of the biggest things is people who are suicidal often feel stuck and they feel like a burden. They feel like there's no help available. And so you just being there, maybe letting them cry on your shoulder, letting them know, hey, help's available, is huge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much again for the work that you all do. We do have a proclamation for you and wish you the best in your walk on next week from Saturday. And the city is here to support you and your organization. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yana, can we ask a question? Just one question. I was a former officer, and I dealt with drug enforcement for a long time. And I just went to an opioid conference, seminar in Ventura, and they brought up some facts that are kind of disturbing. With the more use of opioids now, 35% of those who go onto heroin start on opioids. Okay, and they're finding more suicide effects on drugs now are causing more suicides. Do you find that also?
I don't think that I'm in a position where I can talk specifically to the statistics, but definitely I am a counselor and I work in the fields of addiction, and I think that's an area that we need to look at accurate reporting. It is hard to know if this is an accidental overdose versus this is an intentional suicide attempt or suicide. I think in the absence of a note or something like that, it would be hard to know which one it is.
I didn't mean using the drugs to go. I meant they tend to become suicidal in different ways.
Oh, okay, because of the
Yes.
increase of the drug use and addiction.
Yes.
I would imagine that could be a part of it. I mean, oftentimes with addiction, there's a dual diagnosis. So you have people that are also struggling with depression, whether the addiction started first or if the depression was there and then they've been self-medicating. So it depends on the person for sure. But yeah, I think that definitely is an issue.
I have a question.
Where can they contact you? Your organization.
We have a website, afsp.org, and our walk website is the same website, but of /VC for Ventura County. I'm listed there on the website if you have additional questions or if I can help you in any way if you're wanting more information about suicide prevention or our walk, you can contact me there. And I do have bookmarks about the walk and some business cards if you'd like to connect with me afterwards.
I have a question, if you would. Yeah, I heard the date, but I didn't hear the time of the walk.
Okay. Yes, it's the September 7th, and registration starts at 7:45 in the morning, and the walk's going to kick off with an opening ceremony at 8:30, and then we'll start hitting the streets at 9.
And the location, I missed that too. I'm sorry.
Constitution Park.
Thank you.
And it should end around 12.
Okay. Hopefully, it won't be so hot that weekend. Yes. Anyone else? Well, thank you again for coming, and good luck on the walk. And again, thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
These are my grandkids.
Okay.
We're going to open the special meeting.
I will. Next item we have is public comments. I do have 2 speaker sheets, and these are for items not on the agenda. The first speaker is Georgette Hadvini, and I'm sure that's wrong. Is Georgette in the audience?
She's coming.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Oh, and your subject is Constitution Week. I'm sorry. Well, please come up to the audience, or come up to the podium, obviously. Yeah, we want to hear from you. I'm sorry, I should have had you come up earlier.
My name is Georgette Hadvina.
Pull it down. Thank you.
My name is Georgette Hadvina, and I live in Camarillo. I grew up behind the Iron Curtain under Stalinism, Communism gave us nothing more than just misery and poverty. The most problem is we had absolutely no freedom. We had no freedom of speech or free election. We didn't even have freedom to decide where we want to live. I was one of the lucky ones. We escaped, my family escaped, and I was double lucky when we got the immigration paper to come to United States of America. And I fell in love with this country the first time when the airplane approached New York, and I spotted her. Oh. And there she was, standing tall and proud. And that was the Statue of Lady Liberty, the symbolism of freedom. And I've been living this country here for several decades in freedom and good life. And I know this country has tremendous problems, but it's still the most amazing country in the world. That's why so many people want to live here.
Exactly.
And the reason it was so amazing, because our system, our free enterprise, brought out more people out of poverty than any other system in the history of mankind. And why was that? One little document called the Constitution. So I really appreciate very much you guys to recognize that, because I think it's very important for the future generation, my grandchildren, to know about it. And we really have to recognize it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you for coming and telling us.
Absolutely. And we are so glad you're here in Camarillo, and thank you for being a part of our community. Our next speaker is Matt Lorimer.
Good evening, City Council. Like I was talking before about Dizzle Park, I went to the Fiesta. I ended up in Dizzle Park. As you were presented a pack July 26 and how bad a condition it was, water faucet wasn't working, concrete broken, electrical wires, picnic tables rusted up. You know, I expected somebody to call me from the city, and I didn't get a call. I called the city manager's office, and apparently he doesn't like to talk to me. I think everybody deserves a call. It's been since July 26. Below you have the recent pictures. What's disturbing is on the trash can we had a pirate as a city logo. Apparently somebody did it, and now it's graffitied. They sprayed over it. Do you think the city could spend a little money and paint the whole entire trash can? It doesn't look presentable, okay? That's not what we call fixing the problem. The two benches you eat at, Miss Charlotte, if you had a grandchild, I was there was a woman there, and her daughter, there's still rust spots. You can cut your hand open. That bench, we should sand it down and paint it. Okay, the maintenance is not happening. I shouldn't have to come in here and tell the city, okay, after almost a month and a half that the park can't paint them and fix them right. It wasn't fixed right. The lawn, okay, the lawn is still dead. You still need to patch it. And then we have a rusted gate where a child could run their hands across it and could cut themselves. You know, this is safety issues. It's also a city, this park has been around since 1890. Okay, the city's paid $1 million for it. It's been neglected, abused, and not taken care of. And you know something? You have responsibility to the people of this city. You know, the people who live around that area think that the city hall, you can put a coat of paint and take care of city hall better than you can maintain this park. This is unacceptable, and we're going to continue to talk about this issue until it's resolved. I expect city council people to go out there and take a look at these pictures. Another thing I want to talk about. The people of Houston, Texas. You know, my heart goes out to them. There's a lot of people in town that feel really sad about that event. That is very tragic. It's going to go on for months. People don't have shelter. They're going to get food. But, you know, there's one organization we need to thank, the American Red Cross. Thank God this country has that. They go around and they help all cities in needs. And I hope as any citizen or anybody out there, I hope you'll contribute some money. It's up to you what you can afford. But that organization is great, and they deserve our applause, because they no matter where the tragedy is in the United States, they're there. They're the frontline soldiers, and I think the city should give them an award locally, the local chapter, because they are important. So I hope you will consider that. It's very important. Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Matt.
Your Honor, can I just say one thing?
Certainly.
The day after I don't even remember the day it was, but it was the day after Mr. Malormer talked to us before about Disdar Park. I did go out and I walked and I looked and looked for all the things, and one of them I had to look really hard for. It was probably 20 feet up in a tree, and I had to orient it, the tree, or my eyes around so I could find the 2 palm trees in the back. Those were the wires, and I'm sure the wires are being addressed. I think they've already been addressed, but Mr. Petropoulos did say that he had his staff take care of a lot of things, and there's more in the way that are going to be addressed.
Madam Mayor, we do have an update on this from staff. We have made tremendous progress since Mr. Lorimer's first, since he first brought this to our attention. Number 4, the gate seems to be a new item on his list. But however, Dave Consul, if you'd bring us up to date as to where we are and what we're about doing there.
Sure. Yes, you're correct, Councilmember Craven. I was out there also the day or the next day after, and I found the drinking fountain to be in working order. Public Works staff did follow up on all the items that were mentioned, and including the wires were taken care of. The benches, the 2 remaining park benches, are in the state that's shown here, obviously, and we patched and sanded and filled and epoxied as best as possible the existing benches there. 2 new benches are planned to be installed, if not tomorrow, by the end of this week or early next week. So we've ordered, and we'll be removing the existing 2 benches and tables, and those will be replaced, like I said, definitely within a week, if not this week. The graffiti on the trash can, I didn't take a close look at the how we addressed that. It appears that it was possible. What we typically do is not paint over as much as possible. We try to remove the graffiti, and it may have removed some of the original color on that trash can. Is why you see more of a gray concrete color there. So the grass situation, our turf refurbishment that we do typically each year at the different city properties, the park here, the library, and Disdar Park. We hadn't been doing that through the drought for a couple years. Last year we did do the refurbishment here at City Hall and at the library. Again, we did not refurbish Disdar Park that year coming out of the drought. We are going to be refurbishing that entire turf area at the park, and including some specific attention to these areas that are worn by pedestrian use of those grass areas. So I believe that's going to be in October time frame. It's seasonal, important we do it at the right time. During that time, there will be restricted access to the grass area. We're gonna tape it off so that it can reestablish itself as good as possible. There will be some rework in the irrigation to increase the coverage so that grass survives better through the use. Some cracked concrete areas. Most of it is not a trip hazard, what we consider a lift. There was some of the panels in the play area. It's a soft landing, the black synthetic that was readjusted. And I believe I've touched on most of there was a desk out there. I believe the chamber took care of that in short order. That was removed. So we have been spending time at addressing these issues and continuing to improve the park.
Thank you. And speaking of improving the park, I mean, one of the reasons we haven't done major changes there yet is we do indeed have, that is one of our projects, to completely redo that park, and hopefully someday we'll get that done for the residents up there. And unfortunately it's tied to a lot of other things, and if the governor hadn't taken redevelopment away from us, it'd been done by now. But we're working on it, and that part of the community does indeed deserve a good park. So we do need to obviously keep it in good repair until we can indeed make those major improvements. So thank you very much. That is the last of the speaker sheets, so we'll go on to our agenda. I do, at this point in time, though, need to, so we don't forget, open our special meeting that was posted for today. And so I will open the special meeting of the City Council. And then we will, when we get to that in order, it is open, and it includes a closed session to which the city attorney will announce when we get to the appropriate spot. Okay, we do have one public hearing this evening. It is a resolution approving a one-year time extension, tentative track map 5920M1 Crestview Ranch. And who will be taking that one?
Thank you, Mayor. Jacqueline Lee will be presenting this item.
Hey, Jackie.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor McDonald and council members. The following is a request for a one-year time extension to previously approved tentative track map 5920, modification number 1. The time extension involves the subdivision of 19.15 acres into 12 residential lots, with each parcel containing 1 acre or greater in area, for a single-family residence to be developed on each lot. The site is located on the north side of Crestview Avenue, west of Avocado Place, in the city's rural exclusive zone, 1 acre minimum lot size. A public hearing has been advertised for tonight's meeting, with notices mailed to all property owners within a 300-foot radius of the outside boundary of the project site, posted at Camarillo City Hall and the city's website, and published in the Ventura County Star. The tentative track map was originally approved by the City Council on July 23, 2014, to subdivide the property into 13 lots. A modification was approved by the City Council on July 8, 2015, which reduced the number of lots from 13 to 12 lots. One of the parcels would be used for the retention of the existing single-family residence on the site. The approval was for 24 months with an expiration date of July 8, 2017. The applicant is requesting a one-year time extension in order to complete the final recordation of the track map. The applicant is anticipating recording the map this fall. The tentative track map complies with the general plan land use designation of rural density residential and zoning of rural exclusive. There are no changes to the tentative track map. All adopted conditions of approval will continue to apply to the project. The suggested action is to adopt a resolution approving a one-year time extension from July 8th, 2017 to July 8th, 2018 for tentative track map 5920, modification 1, subject to all previously approved conditions of approval. And that concludes staff's report and are available for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions? This isn't the first time we've extended a tentative track like this. So no questions? Thank you very much. Oops, you have a question?
I guess I'm curious. Almost everything else I've ever seen come through here would go from July 8th through July 7th. Why are we adding a day to the year?
Sorry, where does it say July 7th?
No.
It doesn't. But almost everything I've ever seen come through here talks about a one-year extension. If it started on July 8th, then it would end on July 7th.
We could double the math and we'll correct that appropriately as necessary.
I think in the staff report, it talks about the original approval was on July 8th of 20, okay, the modification was approved on July 8th of 2015. Right. And when the applicant submitted the request for the time extension, it automatically extended the map for 60 days. So that would automatically give them at least until July, I'm sorry, till September 7th which would be the 60th day, I believe.
No, because you got 3 days in July and
31 days in July.
So it should have been, I believe, September 6th then.
Yes.
Okay, so September 6th of 2017. But the code references when we do the extension, we extend it from the original date.
But I think what she's saying, you're going from the 8th of one year, July 8th, to the 8th of the next
so
year.
that's 1 year and 1 day.
So maybe it should be to July the 7th.
So we understand. We'll double check
Okay.
the math and make sure that the resolution is correct if that's the action of the city council.
So if the council approves it with the correction of the
Correct.
date to be a 1-year extension.
Yes.
I guess it's actually in the motion too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. I do not have any speaker sheets on this item. Would anyone like to address the council on this item, which is a resolution approving a 1-year time extension, tentative track map 5920M1, Crestview Ranch? Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. Council, any discussion?
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving a 1-year time extension for tentative tract 5920M1, subject to all previously approved conditions of approval.
I'll second that with comment, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Morgan.
This is nothing unusual, unless there's something that happened to that property in between. We've done this many, many times over the years, and so it's nothing out of the ordinary.
To many properties, not to this one necessarily.
Right.
This is its first.
Yeah.
I think also a comment, I think this is a challenging piece of property as well.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a good project.
Okay, with that, if there's no further comments, we do have a motion and a second, so please vote. And that does pass unanimously. And before we move back to pick up what we've passed over, I need to back up a little bit. We had the presentation on the Constitution, and I think we didn't realize we had speaker sheets for that. So I want to invite those people up to take the opportunity to talk to the City Council. And this is all on Constitution Week. The first one is Gloria Massey Chania. Oh, I got it. And if you'll state your name for the record, and you all have 3 minutes.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council Member. My name is Gloria Massey Chinea. My husband is Rolando Chinea. We are citizens of the City of Oxnard, and we're here because we're celebrating Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd. And we are so thankful to all of you for recognizing this great event that's happening. It's happy birthday to the Constitution. So I invite you to celebrate in a healthy way and naturally be able to celebrate the beauty that we have with this document. In our family structure, I come from the island of Puerto Rico, but my husband comes from an island of Cuba. And we definitely can contrast in our family structure what beauty we have being citizens of the United States and being able to have the Constitution. We know what is living without freedom and under socialism and communism, because my husband at 12 years old had to flee from communism. And that brings a lot to our family unit. And we want to express that to all of you because we have felt what it is. We know the damage that if we don't have this beautiful document that we have and we celebrate. So I thank you for recognizing that time in this year, celebrate the happy birthday of the Constitution, and be able to be proud of what we have in this country. Yes, we have many difficulties, but we are the best of the best. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you to the Council for recognizing this opportunity and for being able to share the activities that you are doing towards the city, because as you said, the city of Camarillo, California, las personas son la ciudad. Naturally, we are the city, and naturally, we love the Constitution. So thank you for the recognition, and thank you for your patriotism. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Pray for Puerto Rico tonight. Pray for Puerto Rico tonight.
Well, I have to give you an update. I would just talk to my family in Puerto Rico, and things look, it moved north. So Irma is out, but another one is coming down.
I know.
Jose,
right behind him.
So we definitely feel that the prayers are what the Lord has made the difference in this hurricane. So thank you for the prayers. And we're part of the United States, and we're proud of that. So thank you. We become the 51st state, hopefully. So thank you so much, and God bless.
You come from a beautiful territory.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joan Lopez.
Good evening, council members. Wonderful city of Camarillo. We have a son that lives here and grandchildren who go to school. I reside in the city of Ventura. I want to personally thank the city council members for recognizing the Constitution Week. That is September the 17th through the 23rd.
16th.
It was August 2nd, 1956, that Congress passed a joint resolution that the President of the United States is authorized and required to designate the period beginning September 17th and ending September 23rd of each year as Constitution Week, and to issue annually a proclamation inviting the people of the United States to observe such week in schools, churches, and other suitable places with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And I know we mentioned, some council members mentioned, we're wondering, are they teaching the Constitution in the schools? And as we go, we've spoke at different places, we're finding that many of the schools are teaching the Constitution at different grade levels. And our goal is that next year, every school will, because it kind of is the law. So I'll just read one short paragraph in my Constitution book. Public Law 108-447, Section 3, was passed in 2004. Each educational institution that receives federal funds for a fiscal year shall hold an educational program on the United States Constitution on September 17th of such year for the students served by the educational institution. So as more and more of us become aware of this national celebration of our Constitution, our children will understand it more, and they'll really grow up being more well-rounded. So many of our youth forget what's in there, and as an adult and a great-grandmother, I see my 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, and I'm thinking, they're not learning like we did, but you know what? We're going to help them, all of us. So I applaud the city of Camarillo for doing this. And we know next year, good Lord willing, that we'll have more and more city council doing this. And I'm pleased to hear that at the public school you're going to have this information. I love the public library. I've been here many times with the grandkids. And it's such an educational institution of itself. So thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Great, thank you
Can I
for
ask
coming.
a question?
Oops, we have a question.
Did Ventura do this? Did they do it at Constitution Week?
I have not. Let me check, because we're getting replies back still.
Or maybe Oxnard?
Okay.
What was the other city council, though, that might be doing it? Who?
The Ventura County Board of Education.
Oh, that's right.
But not the cities or of either one. Okay. Thank you.
You are.
We're leaders.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Next, we have Deborah Salvala. Savala. Very good.
My button says, ask me about Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, and I have buttons for all of the council members here. And I want to thank you all this evening very much. Our Constitution lays out our liberties and laws. That delivers the means for the lifestyles we all enjoy. words and the ideas they convey throughout generations are the linchpins of our Constitution. On September 17th, 1787, 230 years ago, our Constitution was signed and ready to be submitted for ratification. Our founding fathers were so concerned with this document's words that in addition to thousands of copies being produced in English, they produced 1,500 in German for Pennsylvania's citizens and several hundred in Dutch for New York's large ethnic population. Our founders were intimately familiar with how hard it was to craft this law-giving, life-affirming document. And they wanted to make it possible for the vast majority of our nascent nation's population to understand the words they were getting ready to proclaim as the heart and soul of these United States of America. The original document from 1787 had 4,500 words. Our Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to our Constitution, added 4 years later in 1791, contains 462 words. Slaves in our nation's history were freed by fewer than 500 words, and women throughout the United States won suffrage with 39 words. Today, our Constitution, with its 27 amendments, contains fewer than 8,000 words. Amazing. These words have influenced untold governments and countless constitutions throughout the world. And tonight, the Camarillo City Council's words about our Constitution honor all of us who have come before us, all of us who want to join us, and all the people in the world who share our values and our Judeo-Christian ethic at the heart of our Constitution. In closing, I add my 275 words spoken here tonight, my profound thanks to all of you. Thank you for taking up this subject, and thank you, Tony Tremblay, for helping to shepherd this through. It helps us to say happy 230th birthday to our Constitution. And in the final closing, we've collected over 700 signatures. Here's copies of over 600 of them from fellow Venturian Countians, which I also share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
have a
for coming.
question.
Oh, we have a question for you. Don't go away.
Are you part of an organized group, or are you a loosely organized group, or?
We are part of an organization. It's a grassroots organization that is nonpartisan. It's called POV, Point of View, Ventura County, and as I said, we're nonpartisan, and we learned about Constitution Week only on the eve of July 4th this year. And so we all became pretty excited about it and wanted to do something, and this is part of the effort, to gain traction this year so that we might, in years to come, have many more and larger celebrations for Constitution Week so that it might rival and hopefully surpass eventually the Declaration of Independence and the celebrations we have on the 4th of July.
Well, you have answered one question I had for a year. And the question was, where on earth about this time last year did my grandson learn about and start talking about the Constitution and how he wanted me to take him to Philadelphia to see where the Constitution was written in Independence Hall? And so now you've answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You know, something to take with you, we're the only city also who are formed an ad hoc committee to celebrate the Vietnam veterans.
Bravo. Bravo.
So we've gone through, what, 3 things now so far? Four. We've gone through 4 events so far with 2 more to go.
Terrific. That's wonderful news.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Next, we have Jane Germain.
Hi, thank you for having all of us and letting us come and speak. I want to just thank you for recognizing the importance of Constitution Week. I live in Somas, but my children attend Camarillo schools, and it's so important, and it has to start somewhere. And I'm sitting here with my colleagues, and I'm listening to all of you talk about Constitution Week, and I see enthusiasm, and I'm thinking, okay, we're the only ones there's other people who are excited about this. So it's very nice to see, and it's very refreshing, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. Mr. Tremblay, thank you so much for helping us move this forward. It's so very important, and I'm so proud of this city. I am so proud my kids go to school here, and thank you so much for what you're doing. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Mike Smith.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Craven, and members of the council, thank you so much for your time this evening. I wanted to share with you a great experience I had recently. You know, I'm a 22-year member of our community here in Camarillo. This is truly a wonderful place to live. Recently in the community, as I was collecting signatures to help observe Constitution Week, not just here in the city, but throughout the county, I was struck by an encounter I had with a young gentleman who was a little bit younger than myself. I told him the story about Constitution Week, why it is important, and he said to me, well, that sounds great, but I'm not a member of the same political party as you, so I just can't sign this. And I said, whoa, hold up. Our rights, do they come from political parties? And he thought about it for a moment. He said, well, maybe not. I said, no. In fact, the party I'm with happens to have not even come into being until after the Constitution was signed. So that's out of the way. And then I asked him this, do our rights come from us? And he said, well, no. And I said, yes, and that's a good thing, because if they came from us, human nature being what it is, we would have anarchy. So that's out of the way. So I asked him then, okay, so it sounds like your main objection to this is removed. Would that be fair to say? He said, yes. I said, then is there any reason at all that you can think of why you would not sign in support of Constitution Week? He said, no, I'll sign it now that I know what it's about and the value it has to me as a citizen and as a human being. And he signed it. I used that same tack with every person who brought up a political objection to underscore, especially among youth, because I think there's a lot of fear among young Americans today, especially dealing with political matters, look, we need to be united the right way, and we need to be united around our basic human rights. Our human rights, as we know, they come from the laws of God and of nature's God. Some people, they like to try to debate, well, who is that or what is that? And I said, no, we'll do that a different time, okay? For the purposes of Constitution Week, we just need to know that our rights do not come from us and they do not come from the government. If they came from the government, we would be like North Korea or Iran, okay? But like I said, if they came from us, we would have anarchy, okay? What we have is the closest thing to perfect that the world has ever had. One thing I can say, just speaking on behalf of a point of view, we have collected over 400 signatures between tonight's date and a month ago. So this is very popular, not just in the city, but in the county as a whole. If it would please the council, I know this we're coming up very quickly upon September 17th, which is the start of Constitution Week. The original purpose, one of the original purposes of Constitution Week was to help persuade the President of the United States to make Constitution Week a national observance. For the purposes of Public Law 915, which was passed in 1956. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming. I apologize for not having your sheets when we were talking about it, but we certainly appreciate you coming, and we appreciate you all being great citizens of our county and our city, and we're here to serve the public, and it's a privilege.
Your Honor, I like the enthusiasm this group has. It's fantastic. I'm glad to see you go out and getting those signatures and being able to spell out history a little
They have
bit.
enthusiasm and they're positive
You
and
bet.
for something. They're not against something.
Positive. Yeah, we do appreciate that. So thank you all for coming. Those of you who don't live here, thank you for coming. And sorry you don't live here. It's a great city, but we appreciate you all coming. Thank you so much. And one of the reasons I'll let you know that we did it this is we don't meet during that specific week. So that's why we had to be a little bit ahead of the schedule. Thank you. So now we need to go back and get back to the city manager's section. And under that section, item B is the appropriation senior and community recreation facility needs study.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I just need to note for the record, I'm going to recuse myself and go off the dais because Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District is a prior client of mine, so I have to recuse myself under the prior source of income rule.
Okay, now Mr. Norman.
In June of 2017, the city entered into a cooperative agreement with the Pleasant Valley Recreation Parks District, by which the two agencies would participate in the production of a jointly funded senior and community recreation facility needs study. To date, the liaison committees of both agencies have met to form an ad hoc committee for the purpose of drafting a request for proposals for consultant services, interview qualified firms, and recommend to the PVRPD board a qualified consulting firm to draft the needs study. The purpose of the study is to evaluate and to better understand the indoor and facility-dependent outdoor recreational needs of the community, with an emphasis on the senior population, in order to plan for the expansion of existing facilities and/or the construction of new facilities. The district received 3 proposals in response to its RFP. The ad hoc committee reviewed the materials provided, interviewed the firms, and chose to recommend to the PVRPD board Greenplay LLC as the most qualified firm to complete the study. The board is anticipated to approve the contract with Greenplay at its September 17, 2017 meeting, which is tomorrow night. A key component of the needs assessment will be the systematic approach to data collection. The methods which Greenplay will use to gain citizen input are a minimum of 8 stakeholder interviews, a statistically valid survey, 2 community-wide meetings, and at least 3 separate presentations. In the event that the needs assessment confirms the need for a facility, Greenplay will partner with an architectural firm to provide cost estimates and basic conceptual plans. Per the cooperative agreement, each agency will pay half of the cost of the study and appropriate 120% of their half share of the $89,315 agreement with Greenplay. This results in an appropriation of $53,589 for the city of Camarillo. The cooperative agreement contemplates that additional work may be desired by the ad hoc committee. Therefore, an appropriation exceeding the base cost of the agreement is requested. Any additional work requested must be approved by the city. That concludes staff's report.
Great, thank you. And I will mention, I was on the committee or I am on that ad hoc committee, but did participate in the interviews, as did Mr. Fox and Mr. Vaca, and interviewed 3 companies. And I think the consensus was when we were done, or it was unanimous when we were done, that we felt that this company would do a great job. I don't know if Mr. Fox or Mr. Vaca, if you have any comments you want to make on the... Nope, we're good. And I noticed that Mary, the general manager of Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, is back there. I have my glasses on. Is that you, Mary?
Yes.
Do you want to come forward and say anything, or you...
I have a question.
We have some questions.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for being here. I know it's mostly indoor, but there's some discussion about outdoor. I was approached by an individual about lawn bowling, for instance. Will some perhaps needs other than indoor be part of this study, or will they be looked at a future date, or has there been any discussion on that?
Yeah, part of the discussion actually, as we were looking at it as part of the RFP, was to look at, and heard your comments when I was here the last time. So one of the things that they will be looking at is outdoor needs around that facility. So those will be looked at, as well as gathering other information. So it won't be excluded information. So when we do the statistically valid survey, when we do the outreach to the community, there'll be a minimum of 8 stakeholder meetings and 2 community meetings. They'll get all that information. So it won't just be if it's indoor needs.
Pleased to hear that, because we're probably not going to be doing a study like this for quite a while. So hopefully it'll be comprehensive and as futuristic as you can get, of course, because as, you know, things come before us and things, you know, drop from, you know, from being popular or not, I think it's going to be important to look at as much data as you can to try to sift through that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that when we were looking at the RFP and looking at the firms, one of the things that we did look at was trend analysis and some of those things to look at. You know, maybe there's something we don't do today that in the next 5 or 6 years that we will be doing or looking at when we get down to it, both a needs analysis as well as a facility. So instead of putting everything in small boxes, is to try and look at how we can use various rooms and spaces. So those things will also be looked at as part of this study.
Mr. Morgan?
No, the last time we heard about that, the outdoor lawn bowling, which I call bocce ball, that I've seen that at Limonera. Have you ever been over to Limonera, the ranch, and seen those beautiful bocce ball where they compete? I think there's 3 of them. If we had a couple of those, do you think, and looking at the other cities, do you think those would be used?
Yeah, there's actually, just to clarify, there is bocce ball, and then there's actually lawn bowling, and those are actually 2 different sports.
Okay.
So Oxnard actually has a lawn bowling facility, and then there are various bocce ball courts, not here in town, but there are various bocce ball courts. And so do I think those will be used? Yes, I do.
Good.
We do have one that we kind of set up on the lawn next to the senior center that we do use. So do I think those would get used? I do.
Good. Very good.
I think that, from my opinion, when we were interviewing the firms, the ones that was chosen seemed to have a really grasp of what we were after. So a very broad, but yet focused. So hopefully that it works out well. Your board hasn't made a decision yet. That's tomorrow, correct?
The board will make a decision tomorrow night.
Perfect.
I don't have a question. I have a comment when it's time for comment.
Okay. Anything else you need to tell us? I'm assuming it worked out, finding the architect that goes with them so that you'll have that piece of the puzzle. And
we're still working on that piece to find that. But one of the things in the stipulations that we have put on with Green Plays, it does need to be a California architect. That was very important to the liaison group, as well as the organization, as well as working with city if those needs come down further. So
Perfect.
still working on that piece of it.
Great, but there will be one. Very important to have a California architect when you're dealing with trying to come up with costs. So that's why it was important. Great, thank you so much. Comments, Mrs. Craven?
I was just happy when I read this yesterday to see that it did include some of the outdoor peripheral areas, because I thought it was important.
Very good. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Mr. Kildee?
As I understand it, the total cost for this is about about $89,000, and the request is for us to spend about $53,000. Is that number about right?
Yeah, the way the cooperative agreement reads is that each organization, the city and the PVRPD, will appropriate 120% of their half of the total cost. That's why it's $53,000 and change, and not a straight 50%.
Okay. I was wondering how we got to that.
Yeah. Very precisely. It was half. I think the other important thing is when we look at this, that in the conversation was that it really would engage the public in the conversation. They'll have workshops, online surveys, and really getting to the heart of what the people of this community want. And so while we may have started the conversation with just the senior center, we obviously won't forget our seniors, but it's more of cohesive, so that we're making sure we really are using taxpayer funds in the right way and the best way, and really looking at all the needs of this community. So I'm looking forward to seeing the end results.
How long do they know about how long it's going to take to get this to fruition?
Study done.
Come on back, Henry.
Is there a timeline on this?
Yeah, so assuming council approves tonight, board approves tomorrow, they will hit the ground running starting in September, and right now looking at March, April is kind of when it would kind of wrap up and come back. A lot of that will depend on the statistically valid survey. So one of the things that we had talked about through the interview process as we talked was that it would be important that we would, if at all possible, to get that survey done before November. Because if we don't get it out and done before November, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, really isn't going to be very good to try and get results back. So the goal is to do that. If we can get that survey out before that period of time, so we can get the information back, then it would be March, April.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? Thank you.
I'll move to appropriate $53,589 from the general fund unreserved fund balance to the city council budget for community grants.
I'll second the motion.
Comment a second.
Mr. Morgan?
I've been waiting for a long time to get something proposed to us so we can move forward with this. Thank you for coming, and I'm glad we're doing this.
Okay, with that, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes with Mr. Tremblay abstaining. I'm assuming someone's getting Mr. Tremblay. Before we move down to our closed session items and our new business, I need to ask the city attorney to bring up an issue that we need to address. We need to go back to a consent calendar item, and I'll let the city attorney explain.
Yeah, that is correct. It was noted during our 6 o'clock break that there was a consent item here, item I, which was the community event funding agreement for Pleasant Valley Recreation and Parks District, and we will need to do a revote on that one to give Mr. Tremblay an opportunity to recuse himself from the vote. So the procedure to do that would be first is for a council member other than Mr. Tremblay to make a motion for reconsideration. Then you'll have a second, and once, assuming that that motion is approved, then there would be a consideration of the item, a motion for approval, presumably, and at that point, Mr. Tremblay could recuse himself. Since it is a consent item, Mr. Tremblay would not need to leave the dais. So step 1 is a motion to reconsider.
I'll move to reconsider item I from the consent calendar, community event funding agreement, Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
No, I'd say you should probably abstain on that one.
Okay, that passes 4 yes with Mr. Tremblay abstaining.
I move to approve the former item I on the consent calendar,
Second.
community event funding agreement, Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. And just so there's no confusion between this and the previous item that we discussed, this is for the annual Christmas parade.
So now Mr. Tremblay needs to indicate.
I need a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike, second. Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, hold on. Now Mr. Tremblay would need to indicate that he's going to be abstaining and why.
Thank you. We had a discussion about reading glasses earlier this evening, and these are new, so obviously I missed this, with apologies to my colleagues, and thank you. I need to recuse myself on this because it has to do with Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, a source of income to me under the source of income rule. A prior client of mine, so I'm going to recuse myself on this item.
So noted. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote on item I from the consent calendar. And that does pass again, this time 4 yes with Mr. Tremblay abstaining.
Thank you, colleagues.
So let's move down to new business and start with the city manager.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. City attorney?
I have no items.
Anything else from staff? Those of you who haven't said anything tonight? Okay, city council members. I think I started at that end. Let's start with Mrs. Craven today.
Well, I attended this isn't a reportable thing, but it was a very nice thing. I attended the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District's Summer Nights Under the Stars one Saturday night, and the weather was very, very nice. It was a very nice event. They're a bunch of go-getters, and if there was a way to make money that they hadn't thought of, I think very, very few people would have thought of it. So I hope you made a lot of money at that event. Or I hope the foundation made a lot of money. It wasn't the recreation and park districts, it was the foundations. I also attended in Sacramento the Governor's Military Council meeting last Wednesday, and the Regional Defense Partnership for the 21st Century was recognized as one of the foremost and longstanding and best operating military support group in the state. And I had always thought of the San Diego one as being something similar to us, but apparently until 4 years ago it was simply the chamber, a different division of the Chamber of Commerce, operated by the Chamber of Commerce. And so people are now taking it over. They formed their own 501c6, which was interesting to me, which is for trade groups, not for lobbying organizations. I mean, trade groups can lobby too, but it's a different type of an organization than ours. But they're spending a good majority of their time now not on support as they had previously, but a good portion of their time in raising money. And so I believe that the way we do it, when back in 94 for the 95 BRAC, our city managers got together with some people from the county and the people who were forming it, which was John Flynn and some farmers. And they all decided it would be good. Well, they tried having corporations donate, and in our county they just don't. The reason is because we just have small little divisions, and if they're going to donate, they're going to donate where the headquarters are. And so it was later, about 2 years later, decided by the city managers and the county CEO that our government agencies would fund it. And that way, the corporate people don't feel, and the military doesn't feel that we are coming to them, we're coming them to help, not to get business for certain companies that contract with the government. And that's what San Diego is beginning to find too, that by having corporate sponsorship, the corporate sponsors are expecting something, and the government, the Navy feels, oh, they're here to get something for them. And so it's a whole different attitude, and it was the first time I'd heard that, so it made me feel good about the way that our group was set up. And our group has certainly functioned for a long time, since '95. I attended the Camarillo Ranch Foundation board meeting last night, and I think that's all I attended. Now, I have to say something, because I made this big pronouncement the other night, last time, and I didn't write emails because I made the announcement at a council meeting. And so I'm going to say, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You just can't be more wrong than I was. Nobody was working on the roof of the Scholey House. There were 3 men up there. I have no idea what they were doing. They were on their knees. I thought they were hammering. I made the wrong assumption. They're not. They weren't fixing the roof. I drove by looking at
So
that.
I
take it all back.
My wife and I both drove by, and I says, I thought there were some things up there they're putting on the roof.
No, they weren't. They obviously weren't roofing. I don't know what they were doing, but maybe they were inspecting, but they were certainly looking at something. Maybe they're casing it out. I don't know. Looking through the holes. I don't know. Anyway, I thought I should make everybody know that I did recognize that I was wrong. However, on something else, a little more serious, there was an article in Sunday Star that got my attention. The headline was, "Funds Draw Up for Fuel Leaks Cleanup." And I read that because when I was on the Regional Water Quality Board, there was a lot of emphasis on cleaning up tanks for dry cleaners and for gas stations. And And it turns out that the funds for the gas station cleanups are being cut. And that's called the LUST program, the Leaking Underground Storage Tank program. And my mind went immediately to that gas station at the corner of Las Posas and Ponderosa. When I got off the water board, I was removed by Governor Davis on January 6th, the year 2000, I think it was. And that was being cleaned up then. So it has been cleaned up under some form of being cleaned up for 20 years now. That is much, much longer than these programs ever imagined, even with the thing where you're blowing, which I think is the type they're doing. They're blowing air in to blow it up, and then they had to have air scrubbers when they came up. I'm thinking this is one that's just dropped through the water board's site. I don't understand how it could be clean in a stage of cleanup for so long. Could we check, and not just check with the person in charge of that program and have him tell you, oh yeah, it's being cleaned up, it's here in my file. Have him check his records and find out what on earth is going on there. That's just, something's wrong.
It could be done and it's just sitting there.
It could be, but 20 years is way too long for this to be cleanup to be happening. And finally, I want to say I like the flag spreaders. Thank you for whoever did that. I had noticed at the government center that the flags are spread out, and in Navy offices the flags are spread out. And I mentioned it, and voila, at the very next meeting we have flag spreaders here. There's one in your office, Your Honor, on your flag. And I understand there was one for the city flag ordered, but it broke. So we'll have to get another one. But anyway, thank you for following through on that for, I guess, Richard.
They look beautiful.
That's all.
That's it. Great. Thank you. Mr. Kildee.
Let's see. I did attend a Streets and Trans committee meeting August 29th. I have a couple of questions, maybe some updates on this. At the end of Earl Joseph and Ponderosa Drive, will we do another traffic analysis there when the Springville gets built out there as far as the traffic flow there and how that's working?
Yeah, actually, a traffic analysis has been done, and the need for that is reached where it's warranted eventually when the sites develop. We're working with a developer actually to accelerate that. We know most likely it's going to meet warrants once the development is completed out there. So the developer's working on, and it's a partnership with a couple of the different developments out there to work on putting a design together more or less ahead of time, so that when it does meet warrants, the timing will be that by the time the development is built out, that a traffic signal will be going in shortly thereafter.
Okay.
So that's the plan at this point.
And on that note, the traffic light at Arneal and Dunnigan, how is that progressing?
Yes, the foundations have been set for the signal poles. There's a cure time for those. There's concrete curb ramp construction happening right now, so that construction is progressing. It, most likely will be complete. We're going to repave the entire intersection at the end. Probably go on for another month or so.
Okay. And also, as I was walking on Temple, I noticed, I think it's on the south side, there's the Ponderosa pine trees there, and the sidewalk is really buckled. Are we on top of that? It's between Temple and Saturn, I think it is, but if you look on the opposite sidewalk there, it's really buckling, and I'm wondering if we're looking on that and seeing what we might be able to alleviate that.
Okay, is that in Ponderosa?
Yeah, it's actually on Temple. It's on Temple.
East side?
It's on the side going towards the Heights. Would that be the east? I guess that would be the
Well,
east.
you go toward Los Nogales School, or you go toward your house.
You go towards our house, yes.
West side.
West side.
Okay.
If you look at that from, I think it's Saturn, I believe
Sure.
it's Saturn. If you look on that side, they're really buckling there.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Could you take a look at that?
Of course.
That'd be great. And also, last I have is Mary Goldberg's retirement. I know there was a card to sign. Was there a proclamation given to her from the city? Does anybody know?
We did a letter to her, right, and I took it to her at her party, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if there
And
was...
I gave her one of our pins to wear on her travels so she wouldn't forget how to get home.
Okay, was there a party for her or anything?
She did. Last Wednesday, they had a party at the library for her.
Did we have anything to do with it, or was it the library?
No, it was the library and the Friends of the Library put it on.
They put it on. Okay. And that was just how it went. I know it's LSI. I believe she was an employee of LSI.
She's actually, an employee of theirs.
They took.
Right.
They took the lead on that. Is that
Right.
correct?
But we felt like that she has been at our libraries for so long that she, kind of felt like a part of our family. So that's why we felt like we should recognize her.
But you did present
I did
her
it.
with, oh, that's great. Okay, good. Glad to hear that. And that's all I have. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, we had, since this was one of our last, what do you call it, 2 weeks of August where we're out most of the time, a lot of the different things we go to, I did not have a meeting this month, went to the next month. A lot of things I attend weren't going this month. But I went to Opioid Solutions Conference that Ms. Craven was going to, and she couldn't because she had something else. And so I went to the Opioid Solutions Conference, and that was really interesting because I've been in law enforcement for a long time, and I was a drug specialist for the feds. But there's some changes that have occurred since those days, in 1998. And one of those is opioids. Because at one point in life, a famous doctor said, this is the coming in the future, that take away pain and on and on. And he took it from a letter that was written by another doctor that had never had any substantiation. Now, opioids are the number one, 35% of everyone that goes to heroin started with opioids. And you're getting, the cotton, the Oxycontin and all kinds of things. And so it's one of those that's a very dangerous thing right now in our community. I used to think it was marijuana that led to it, but now opioids is one of those biggest things pushing around the communities. We have some solutions coming. One is a law that was passed, and it's called Cure 2, Cure 2.2. And what happens is they've got an agency in Sacramento that tries to get all the pharmacies to let them know when they see abuse of opioids. And then the doctors also, they've been putting it out to the doctors so they can try to see that if someone's shopping around doctors and getting more. So between the pharmacies and the doctors right now, we're really developing this system to locate those who are abusing opioids. And so cross your fingers. And it's come around a lot. I want to find out more how it's been done in Camarillo with our police officer back there. Maybe we can talk about how opioids have been handled here, along with that Cure 2.0, excuse me.
Sometime we could have
And I'd like to have that, maybe that reported to us by our sheriff, our commander back here, and see what we're doing in that respect. But if you get a chance and want to hear if there's another conference like this, it's very interesting. The place was packed. I sat there's several seminars after, and I sat in the one of the policemen to see what we're doing. And that's how I learned about that Cure 2.0. Dones and Donas. That was, again, it was a great, successful event. Charlotte had a good time up there on the stage. But the full house again. And we had a lot of good people there for Dones and Donas. So she and I were there for the cities and helped represent Camarillo. But it was a very successful, again, some people that really committed to this community. And I don't know if, I've got I don't know if you guys got it, but I've got one that shows everyone in their backgrounds. Did everyone get those?
Yes,
Tony?
we did.
Okay, because it shows these people are very qualified. We've got some good people in the city volunteering. Also went to the chili cook-off. The chili cook-off at Chamber of Commerce out at the Camarillo House. It was only about 100 degrees, but fortunately we had a lot of people, but everybody's leaving kind of early, I think, because it was so hot, just sweltering. But the chili was hot. That made it even worse. But I viewed it, and it was a cook-off, to go to the next level. We hadn't had one of those in a long time that goes to the next level. So hopefully we'll keep that up. We used to have it. Anyway, that was a successful event the way I saw it. And that's all I did, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Tremblay.
Thanks. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Quickly, I had an August 29th meeting with Councilmember Kildee on the Streets and Transportation Committee with several items to discuss. And then just two quick things having to do with Camarillo Ranch. We had the pleasure of going to the event last week where the last Thursday of the evening is the food trucks. Thank you, Mrs. Craven. Throwback Thursday. But the New West Symphony and a jazz quintet of the New West Symphony was also playing that night, and it was a wonderful evening. There actually a breeze came up, and it was actually cool, and it was very cool being in that setting in the early to mid-evening listening to great jazz. Secondly, on the chili cook-off, I really want to compliment the folks who in the Chamber of Commerce and all the nonprofit groups that did the chili cook-off. I am just very sorry that it was so warm on the weekend. We, like Mr. Morgan, we went for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then we had to head home. But I really want to salute them, and I'm hoping that it just happened to be really difficult weather this time around. So we will hope for much cooler weather next week because it's for a great cause. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Just say one more thing. We have two football teams. I got to call Rio Mesa football team because some of our kids are still going there, not much longer. But we have two great football teams in this city. The city of Camarillo beat Saugus 42-14, and Saugus is usually a pretty good team. And Rio Mesa are big time. I mean, they beat Camarillo 2 weeks ago by 2 touchdowns, and they won again big. So I think we've got two teams to root for in this city. They're doing well.
Thank you. Well, I will start with the chili cook-off. I will tell you I spent half my time apologizing for the weather. And since the president of the chamber is out there, I guaranteed them that it was Chamber of Commerce weather and not City of Camarillo weather. Because you usually take credit for it when it's perfect. But it was a good event. I had the privilege of being a judge of the red chili portion. So I got to taste all of the hot items. But I'm very proud to say that I picked 2 of the 3 winners. So as an amateur, I did okay. And this is indeed a qualifying round to go to the World Championship of chili. So that was kind of fun. But the weather was a little tough. But you know what? Red Handed just kept playing till the end, so they didn't care. So it was a good time in Camarillo. Speaking of good times in Camarillo, next Saturday, Elvis will be back for his yearly visit. So don't forget to come out to the park and for the last concert of the season. And summer's not over until Elvis has left the park. Let's see. We didn't have too many of our committee meetings. I just want to take a moment to, and I know we have all of the people of Houston, and now we're looking at the East Coast and Florida and some of Puerto Rico, and it's a sad time when we see Mother Nature's kind of turn against us. But on one side, it's an absolutely amazing time to see people coming together to help each other. It's phenomenal to see human nature come out for the good, and it's been a horrible time for a lot of people, but it's been a good time because they've been there for each other. So I know that anyone who can help should help. There's good causes, and make sure you give to good organizations to help those residents. But at some point in time, a nice note from the city of Camarillo to those cities would be a nice thing. I know we've done it in the past when cities have had a tragedy, and I assume the mail's going to get through here pretty quick, but it's just a nice note telling them that they're in our thoughts and prayers, and that You know, I know for me, I sit at home thinking, geez, what would we do as a city council if we had something of that magnitude? And I know probably all of you as staff do the same thing. You know, how would you handle? What would we do? So it's something we all need to think about as we take responsibilities for the cities that we live in.
As we review our emergency plan.
Absolutely, you know, and you think, oh, we'll never have a hurricane, but then look at what happened in Santa Barbara that afternoon when they had some swell that came up and it was like a tornado or something. You just never know anymore what's going to happen. So it really does show we need to be prepared for emergencies we can think of and maybe those we think will never happen to us.
Your Honor, just want to say I'm from Texas, but I'm going to say this. I'm very proud of how they handled this. There were so many people helping people, putting people up in their furniture stores, putting people up in everything to help. The professional football players, baseball players, and college teams out there delivering food and helping people. I've never seen such a good, helpful group this time.
It's absolutely amazing. And so many of the pictures, I mean, they tear at your heart to think what people are going through. But on the other hand, it's very inspirational to see it. And we've seen lots of pictures. I will tell you about my two favorite. One of them is a picture of a pretty good-sized SWAT officer, and he's in his fatigues, carrying a woman who's carrying her baby who's sound asleep through the water. I mean, it was just, you look at that and you go, whoa, you know, that's what people are all about. And then talking about animals, there's another one of this adorable golden retriever walking down the road, splashing through the water, carrying a bag that had his food in it. So, you know, it's just what you saw was just, I mean, so it is amazing. So our hearts certainly go out to all the people and what they're going through.
Your Honor, can I?
Certainly.
Before we adjourn, I was wondering if it's permissible from the county or the council that we had a tragic death about a week ago.
The last one on my
that
list,
one,
too.
okay, great.
No, go ahead if you want to say something.
No, it's a parrot, and he was, the parrot family is an indelible part of the fabric of Camarillo, and they've been around for many, many years. Many of us know the uncles and aunts and the fathers and brothers and cousins. It's a very large family and very supportive of all we do here in the city. And when I first was running, the grandfather, John Parrott, came and told me that he was very proud to be a resident of our city and very happy that I decided to run for city council. So I think it'd be appropriate, and I'll yield to you and what you'd like to go forward with this.
Well, I totally agree with you that we need to send our greatest sympathy to that family. I did send a little note, and I did it on our nice City of Camarillo stationery on behalf of the City Council before, but I think it would be absolutely appropriate to adjourn the meeting in his memory. He was only 16, but already he had a presence in the community. He was a good kid. He was one of the Explorer Scouts, was really making his mark in the world. And it's such a sad thing to lose someone that young. And I can't even imagine what his family's going through. It's such a tough time. So anything that we can do to help ease that or to let them know that we're there for him is, I agree with you, it's so important. So if the council doesn't mind, we will do that, and the city clerk can send that on to him. Anything else under information items? So we have a couple of things to finish up. We have study sessions to finish, and we do have closed session items that I would ask the city attorney to announce.
Yes, we have two closed items in the regular council meeting. They're both with respect to significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Number of cases is 2. And then on our special agenda, we have a closed session item for conference with legal counsel existing litigation. This one's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1. The name of the case is Davey and Cayugas Land versus the City of Camarillo.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, we are recessed to finish up our study sessions and to our closed sessions.